Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. I now convene the October 12th, 13th, 2023 meeting of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. Will the recording secretary please call the roll?
Jeanette Brown.
Here.
Catherine Williams Brown.
Here.
Jose Cardenas.
Present.
Cheryl Cotton. Juan Cruz.
Here.
Christopher Davis.
Here.
Michael Dilatori.
Present.
Marisol Dilatori Escobedo.
Here.
Anna Marie Francois.
Present.
Makita Gwynno Shire.
Present.
Megan Gross.
Present.
Johanna Harwick.
Here.
Susan Aradia.
Present.
Bonnie Clark.
Present.
Ira Litt.
Present.
Monica Martinez.
Here.
Shireen Pabri.
Present.
David Simmons.
Present.
Kimberly Weiss Smith. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioner Gross, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Let me begin by welcoming Cheryl Cotton to the Commission as the new designee for the Superintendent of Public Instruction. Ms. Cotton is beginning her 30th year as an educator in California. Over the years, she has served as a teacher, a project coordinator, and a school coach for a nonprofit education organization, a school site principal, director at the district level, assistant superintendent at a county office of education, and she now serves as the deputy superintendent of public instruction for the California Department of Education. In this role, she leads the Curriculum Frameworks and Instructional Resources Division, the Educator Excellence and Equity Division, which focuses on statewide professional learning, the Assessment, Development, and Administration Division, the State Special Schools and Services Division, and the Office of Equal Opportunity. Deputy Superintendent Cotton credits her mother, a retired kindergarten teacher, and many mentors and colleagues in the field for always keeping what happens in the classroom at the forefront of her daily actions and decisions. Welcome, Commissioner Cotton. Next, I would like to welcome Ronald R.J. Wicks, our student liaison to the Commission. RJ is a fourth-year student at Pepperdine University, majoring in political science. He is currently obtaining a multiple subject teaching credential in addition to a conflict management certificate from Pepperdine Law School. RJ is interested in pursuing a career in education, specifically education policy or administration, with hopes of bringing equitable and innovative changes to the education system. RJ grew up in Carson, California, surrounded by a close-knit family and community that emphasized the values of empathy, uplifting others, and seizing every opportunity. During his time at Pepperdine, RJ demonstrated this by engaging in a multitude of enriching experiences. He embraced the global perspective through participation in 4 study abroad programs, expanding his horizons across 12 countries. Within the campus community, RJ's leadership has shown through his roles as a resident advisor, student government senator and representative, and Pepperdine ambassador. Beyond the academic sphere, RJ has held internships in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. His internships span diverse fields, including K-12 education, higher education, adult education, philanthropic education, social media, and digital marketing and human resources. Welcome, RJ. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Thank you so much.
I would also like to honor Commissioner Marisol Escobedo, whose term with the Commission has come to an end. More accolades for Marisol in a few minutes. I'd like to now remind everyone about the meeting procedures before we get to today's agenda. This meeting is being conducted at the Commission office and via teleconference. We have commissioners participating from the Commission building and also via Zoom. The public has the option to attend the general session of the meeting at the Commission office or participate remotely through Zoom webcasts or U.S. toll-free phone number. For those participating from the Commission office, the microphones must be turned on before you start to speak by pushing the button and then turn off once you're finished. You will know the microphone is on when the indicator light shows green. The microphones for individuals who are attending via teleconference have been muted to eliminate any background noise that may hinder others from hearing what is being said. Commissioners and presenters can unmute yourself, but please mute your microphone after you are done speaking. Commissioners attending the meeting via Zoom that would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. Because this is a hybrid meeting, we will need to conduct each vote by roll call. We would like to ask the members of the public who attend the meeting via Zoom and would like to make public comment to check their Zoom identification. Your Zoom identification is the name used when logging into the meeting. It is important that the Zoom identification is accurate so we can call on you appropriately during public comment. Next, we will cover the public comment procedures. The committee chair will announce when the public comment period is open during the presentation of the agenda item and ask for anyone who wishes to comment to notify the meeting moderator. Let's move to agenda item 1A, which is the approval of the August 2023 minutes. We will now open for public comment. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
We have no public comments.
Thank you. The public comment period for this item is now closed. We will need to make two separate motions to approve the executive committee and regular session minutes. I would like to remind everyone that only those who served on each of the committees can make and second the motion to approve the committee minutes. Before I call for a motion, I would like to ask commission members to please state your name when making and seconding your motion. On that note, do I have a motion from a member of the executive committee? And again, as a reminder, that is myself, Marisol, Jose, Megan, Johanna, Monica, and David. Do I have a motion from a member of the executive committee to approve the August 2023 executive committee minutes?
I move.
Make sure you say your name, please.
Oh, sorry. David Simmons, I so move.
Do I have a second?
Johanna Hartwig, I second it.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Simmons and a second by Commissioner Hartwig. Any discussion? Will the recording secretary please call for a vote?
Makita Guinoshire,
Aye.
Marisol de la Torre Escobedo,
Aye.
Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Hartwig,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, do I have a motion to approve the August 2023 regular session minutes?
Susan Heredia, I move to approve the minutes for August 2023.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second this one.
I'm sorry, who was that?
One.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Heredia and a second by Commissioner Juan, and I can't see your last name right now. Any discussion?
It was Commissioner Cruz.
Cruz, thank you. Any discussion? Will the recording secretary call for a vote, please?
Danette Brown,
Aye.
Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
Cheryl Cotton,
Aye.
Juan Cruz,
Aye.
Christopher Davis,
Aye.
Michael Dilatorre,
Aye.
Marisol Dilatorre Escobedo,
Aye.
Makita Gwinnell Shire,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Howick,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Ira Litt,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is item 1B, approval of the October 2023 agenda. There is a revised agenda insert for item 1C and agenda inserts for items 2C and 4A. Commissioners, I'd like to start the Educator Preparation Committee no later than 10:15, so please keep that in mind during our reports. We'll now open for public comment. Recording Secretary, are there any public comments?
We do not have any public comment cards.
Thank you. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do you have a motion to approve the October 2023 agenda? Again, please state your name when making and seconding your motion.
Bonnie Klatt, I move to accept sorry,
Thank you.
it's early in the morning.
It
I move
is
to
early.
approve the October 2023 agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Johanna Hartwig, I second that motion.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Klatt and a second by Commissioner Hartwig. Any discussion? Will the recording secretary please call for a vote?
Danette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas,
Aye.
Cheryl Cotton,
Aye.
Juan Cruz,
Aye.
Christopher Davis,
Aye.
Michael Dilatorre,
Aye.
Marisol Dilatorre Escobedo,
Aye.
Makita Gwinnell Shire,
Aye.
Megan Gross,
Aye.
Johanna Howick,
Aye.
Susan Aradia,
Aye.
Bonnie Clark,
Aye.
Ira Litt,
Aye.
Monica Martinez,
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Agenda item 1C is approval of the October 2023 consent calendar. We will now open for public comment.
We do not have public comment for this item.
Thank you. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any items they would like to consider in closed session?
We'll start off with Commissioner Cardenas.
I'd like to pull item 10, Stacy Bricks.
Commissioner Hartwig.
I'd like to pull number 58, Clifford Bruce Mitchell.
Commissioner Litt.
Thank you. I'd like to pull item number 81, Ernest Segala.
Commissioner Gross.
I'd like to pull item number 17, Courtable, and number 19, Kundari. Would you like my recusals right now too?
For the consent calendar, yes.
Okay. I also need to recuse myself from number 11, Monica Campo, number 58, Clifford Mitchell, number 102, Glenn Pike.
Commissioner Gross, you're if you get closer to the mic next time, thank you.
Is this better?
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Commissioner Klatt.
Yes, I need to recuse myself from a number of items because I was at the Committee of Credentials meeting in July. So there's a list here. I'll just read by number. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 12, 17, 18, 22, 23, 26, 28, 32, 35, 37, 40, 59, 62, 65, 70, 71, and 77.
Commissioner Davis,
I'd like to put this closer. Pull item number 22, Jimmy Durham, and number 24, Craig Evenhouse.
Commissioner De La Torre,
I'd like to recuse myself from, I was also at the meeting with Commissioner Klatt. So I'll just list the numbers. One, do I need to repeat the numbers? Yes, okay. One, I'll just say the numbers. Item 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 12, 17, 18, 22, 23, 26, 28, 32, 35, 37, 40, 43, 59, 62, 65, 66, 70, 71, 77, 81, 91.
Any other commissioners? Do I now have a motion to approve all remaining items on the consent calendar? Again, please state your name when making and seconding your motion.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Commissioner Martinez, I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis and I have a second by Commissioner Martinez. Any discussion? Thank you. Will the recording secretary please call for the vote?
Danette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Cheryl Compton.
Aye.
Juan Cruz.
Aye.
Christopher Davis.
Aye.
Michael De La Torre.
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo.
aye.
Makita Quino Shire.
Aye.
Megan Gross.
Aye.
Johanna Harwick.
Aye.
Susan Aradia.
Aye.
Bonnie Clark.
Aye.
Ira Lit.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Good morning again, colleagues. I'm sorry not to be joining you in person today. You may have noticed by now that I use my time as your chair to highlight issues that are relevant for us as educators and commissioners. I select topics and issues that hopefully are timely and that allow you to think deeper about a particular issue or to consider it from a different perspective. My first comment today focuses on the power of student voice, and it seems an appropriate comment as we welcome our new student liaison. I'm sure you have read the news about how school culture wars have pushed students to form banned book clubs and anti-censorship groups. Across our nation, these student-led banned book clubs and anti-censorship groups have been forming in states where a conservative-led movement to remove certain books or lessons have led to protests. The students behind such groups say they have long been left out of the conversation that impacts them directly. One student was quoted as saying, "I thought it would be perfect to do a banned book club. One, as just a way to read beautiful literature that's important and should be read, and two, kind of as an act of resistance." Students like these give me hope, and I look forward to hearing more about their efforts as they speak truth to power. I'm also very interested in hearing more from our own students. Mary and I have been discussing ways that we might include candidate and graduate voices more at the table, and I hope I have something to share with you at our December meeting. In reflecting on my remarks, I notice they have been somewhat serious, but that has been the state of education recently, hasn't it? But today, my second comment will focus on celebration and gratitude. Today is bittersweet for all of us as we say goodbye and thank you to our Vice Chair, Marisol De La Torre Escobedo, whose term expires this month. Mary and I racked our brains trying to come up with a way to keep her on the commission, but apparently there are term limits for some of us. Marisol was appointed in 2015 as a teacher representative. Marisol received her bachelor's degree from UC Berkeley and her clear single subject teaching credential and Master's of Arts in Education from Stanford University. She has been a teacher for the Chico Unified School District since 2007 and has taught at Inspire Schools of Arts and Sciences since 2010. In 2013, she was selected as a Chico Rotary Educator of the Year, and in 2014, received the Teachers Are Heroes Award. In 2018, Marisol started teaching a subject area pedagogy class in the credential program at CSU Chico. And in 2020, she spearheaded the only ethics studies course and curriculum in Chico secondary schools. She continues to provide leadership to support the implementation of ethics studies with the California Regional Ethics Studies Collaborative Project, which aims to improve academic outcomes for all students through building statewide, regional, and local systems of support for ethnic studies implementation in California schools. I began serving on the commission in 2016 and have always been impressed with how Marisol brings the work that we do here home, if you will, as she relays stories of her students and the impact that she and her colleagues have on the lives of these young students each and every day. During the pandemic, I vividly recall her sharing the heroic ways that she worked to engage her students during this unprecedented time and her heartfelt concern for their social and academic well-being. Marisol began serving as vice chair in 2020. In this role, she is always calm, fair, gracious, and thoughtful in how she interacts with all of us and with the public. As you know, in this role, she chairs the closed session portion of the agenda, and this is where I have observed her caring and keen leadership. She consistently interacts with educators who come before us in a thoughtful and caring manner, ensuring they are heard and treated with respect. Well, there's more that I could say about our dear colleague, but I will end with my remarks here. Commissioners, please find some time today to thank Marisol for her service. Marisol, on behalf of all of us around the table and the educators we prepare, we thank you so very much for your service and dedication. Would you like to make a comment, Marisol?
Wow, thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you all. When I started on the commission, my children, Joaquin and Selena, were 4 and 2 years old. And now they're in 8th and 6th grade, 11 and 13. And it's been amazing to pinpoint certain decisions that we've made through their schooling timeline. And that's how I've sort of seen my path here. During my first few months as a commissioner, I asked Connie Blackburn, who was a kindergarten teacher extraordinaire. She was at her last meeting, and I asked her, Connie, what are you most proud of here on the commission? And she had mentioned all the changes in creating a solid induction program. And I remember her comments so vividly. And I wanted to give a shout out, of course, to all of our work, but specifically what we do in closed session. And I know we can't talk about it, but I walk away so amazed at what we sort through and discuss in making the best decisions possible with student school safety and due process at the forefront. And I also want to commend the Division of Professional Practices and the Committee of Credentials for laying the groundwork for us. Because those long closed session hours and late evenings are never easy. Moving forward, I've entered year 21 of teaching. And I think back at my experience in high school, there was a moment when a teacher questioned my citizenship. And I realized then that as the daughter of Mexican immigrants, my citizenship was automatically suspect. And this was a teacher that I trusted, and they made me feel so small at that moment. But I also realized the power that I had to make sure that another student didn't ever feel that way ever again. And here I am. Fast forward to my credential program. I remember sitting in Linda Darlene Hammond's classroom, learning the tools to engage in this work long-term, and also just how critical those first few years of teaching were for me. And luckily, I was surrounded by so many amazing mentor teachers, our very own liaison, Aida Rodriguez, Tina Sonapur, Jeff Gilbert, and there's so many more. So in terms of making those decisions to uplift, support, and license our teachers, I'm so thankful to this commission for continuing the work. As we know, those critical first years are, so momentous. And it brings me so much joy knowing all the all-stars sitting at this table and also the all-stars that I can see on Zoom. So thank you all. It's been an amazing journey.
Thank you, All-Star Marisol. Well, welcome back to our Executive Director, Sandy. I now turn it over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. It is great to almost see you, and I'm sorry I can't be present in the room today. When I started at the Commission in 1992, I was a year away from having my third child. My daughter was born in 1993 while I was staff at the Commission. And I am with her this week. She has delivered just a couple of days ago her first child. So I feel like I've had several lifespans, Marisol, as we think about how old our children were at different points in this journey. It's been a great journey, and an especially great journey with you at the table, Marisol. You just have been the consummate teacher and commissioner in every way. I'm so grateful for your thoughtful interactions, your support for the staff as they bring what we try to make our best work before you. And I just have to echo Chair Grenot-Shire's just calling out your empathy and your kindness and respect for the profession and for everyone in the room. I'm going to miss you at this table so much, and I commit to making a visit to Chico so that we can have a proper moment to celebrate your tenure with us and think about ways in which you might still be engaged with the Commission's work, because we don't ever really let anybody go here, right? That's just not how we do. So, Marisol, thank you, and moving on then, I would also like to welcome Cheryl Cotton to the table. It has been great working with you over the last several years, Cheryl. You've been a wonderful colleague at the department, and I feel like we've had some very good and big and substantive issues to work on together, particularly in the early childhood sphere. And it is just fantastic to have you at this table, alternating with Superintendent Tony Thurmond. It just really feels like we've got all the right connections here in a very good way. So welcome to you. Also, I'd like to add my welcome to Student Liaison RJ Wicks. I am really looking forward to meeting you and getting to know you better. We have such a short time with our student liaisons, but the voice you bring and the perspective you bring, it just has a real impact on my understanding of the issues that are coming up before the Commission. And I know the commissioners to a person appreciate hearing the voice, and we welcome your voice at this table. I wanted to let you all know, commissioners, that in May of next year, the Commission will be moving out of this building and into a new building complex, a campus, if you will. It's called the Richards Boulevard Office Complex. And it's really going to be quite lovely. It's 4 buildings that are being built on the corner of 7th Street and Richards Boulevard. There will be an on-site gymnasium, an on-site childcare center, on-site food services, beautiful internal campus quad area with trees and tables and all of the things that can make for a nice environment. And we're going to miss our Midtown. But we are outgrowing this building, and we need the space, and we need to make this happen within the next year. So we'll of course keep you up to date as meetings are scheduled after our April Commission meeting here. We may be having the June commission meeting in the new building, but you know, these are developers. These are people building houses. You know, it never quite hits the timeline you're expecting. So let's just be flexible about that. In any event, that's on the horizon. So finally, I would just like to remind you all that we will have the nomination and election for chair and vice chair at the December commission meeting. So be thinking about that, and I will conclude my remarks at this point and turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Executive Director Sandy. Do any commissioners have items to report? And Marisol will call those in the actual room, and I'll keep an eye on the Zoom screen.
Go ahead, Commissioner Davis.
Good morning again, everyone. Trying to adjust this microphone correctly so that it doesn't hit me in the face. I have a few items to report, but first I want to welcome back Executive Director Sandy and to offer again my condolences for your loss, and for those of us who have not seen the program from Gary Sandy's service, there's an extra one floating around the table, so you can enjoy that celebration that I was privileged to be able to attend. And also congratulations on the new grandchild. Baby looks beautiful in that picture you sent me. I also want to give praise and thanks to Commissioner De La Torre Escobedo, and I'm just gonna give you the tears there because I know we haven't known each other very long. It's been about 2 years, but I feel so connected to you, and I appreciate all of the service that you've given the commission. I've gone back 3 years. I know this is exciting stuff, and watched meetings for just in doing my homework to be on the commission. And you've always been kind of an active part of what the commission does, and I do appreciate all of the work that you've done over the years. On November 3rd, our Madam Chairperson, Marquita Grinoshire, will be honored at Cal State University, Los Angeles' 31st Annual Distinguished Educators Award Dinner. And she and my high school Spanish teacher will be honored there. And I've been invited along as her special guest, and I appreciate that, and congratulations to you. And on Saturday, I'm going to be attending the 40th anniversary celebration for Head Start in the Bay Area with Commissioner Brown, and that should be lots of fun, and looking forward to all of these events. And so finally, here's my report. Shameless plug for my program again, Michael, nudge, nudge. Our new BIPOC cohorts have begun for this year through the National Board Resource Center at Stanford. Thanks in conjunction with our partners at CTA and NEA for the funding and also the program coordination. Our program has recently gone national. So we're reaching out across state lines to do that same work in Texas, North Carolina, Arkansas, Hawaii. There's a couple of different other states that we are seeing candidates from, and we're actually Zooming with candidates in China and Japan that are US citizens who are teaching overseas. So they're going to be certifying, and their teaching context is just a little different than ours, but internationally as well. So very proud of that work. And I want to say that I have been working as a teacher coach for the past 3 months, and I've been working with folks in the induction, going through the induction process, and also the TPE process. And wow, the perspective that I have as an induction coach is very different than someone looking from the outside. It's quite an experience, and I'm doing that program through UCSG. And it is a real challenge, but a gratifying one. And I appreciate the fact that we have Ms. Cotton here. Thank you so much for your service and for being with us, and also our new student liaison. And man, I feel your pain. I've seen what you all have to do during induction. I've seen the TPE process, and really have helped several teachers and shepherded them through the process. So if you need some help, just give me a call. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Cotton.
Good morning, everyone. First, I want to say thank you for such a warm welcome, very warm welcome. Having a chance to meet just about all of the commissioners this morning, and really excited to be able to serve in this capacity. Dr. Sandy, thank you very much for your welcome. We've known each other for quite a while, and I do appreciate the partnership. And I just want to start my report by saying that in August, Superintendent Thurmond hosted our teacher recruitment summit at CDE, and that was to encourage different groups organizations who are working on teacher recruitment to come together and take action. And I just really appreciate and just want to extend a warm thank you to CTC for being there, being present, and also including the new counselors. We're able to sit in on each of our breakouts and offer insight and support. It made that event so much more meaningful to the folks. And again, this is a call to action, not a call for conversation, but a call to action. And I feel like we're moving forward in that area. I also want to update you on our California National Board for Professional Teaching Standards Certification Incentive and Subsidy Award Programs. So we have opened our third year of applications on September 1st, 2023. Those applications will be open until January 10th, 2024, and are available on our 2023-24 National Board Grant Programs webpage. Just a little information on that. In the first month, the application being open, we received 1,080 applications for the 2023-24 certification cycle. There's over 800 subsidy recipients that are waiting to receive their scores this December, and those candidates will hopefully receive confirmation that they are nationally board certified. This is legislation and action that is working. It's taking hold in our schools. I want to do a shout out to CTA and other programs out there that are doing some amazing cohort work to support our national board certification process. In addition to that, in the first month of the application being opened, we received 1,628 applications for the incentive program as well. So those are teachers who are working in our highest needs schools, so with national board certification. So excited about this program. The Assembly Bill 908 is awaiting our governor's signatures that would expand the National Board Incentive Program to authorize a teacher who initiates the process of maintenance of certification from the National Board. They would receive an award of $495. So this is a way to supplement incomes for our teachers and a way to really provide the best prepared folks to be in our highest priority schools. In addition to that, CDE is working in partnership with San Diego County Office of Education and Region 15 Comprehensive Center with our Diversifying the Teacher Workforce Community of Practice. This is our third year of this program, and this community of practice will be happening on October 18th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. The Escondido Elementary School District will be presenting on their model for community college collaboration. So filling the need for instructional assistants and grow your own programs. There will be 4 additional community of practice meetings this year, focusing on topics including how to braid funds to diversify your teacher workforce and teacher residency programs and retaining a diverse teacher workforce. So we encourage folks to join us. If you're interested in joining, if your district is interested in being a part of this, please contact the Teacher and Leader Policy Office at tlpo@cde.ca.gov. There's a lot that's been going on, so I'm just very excited. This may be a little long, and I apologize, but I just want to make sure that I'm sharing really good information that's happening at CDE, but is in support of what's happening with educators across the state. And just another plug, just to remind you that we did pass our mathematics framework. We're very excited about that and are working on our rollout process to make sure that LEAs are aware and classroom teachers are aware of what's in the framework. I think it is leading the field in inclusive practices and equitable practices around mathematics instruction. So very excited about that work as well. More information to come. Let's see, our recommended literature list for pre-kindergarten through grade 12 has been updated. There's over 200 new books that are now in our database. The CDE is looking for suggestions for recently published high-quality multilingual books in languages such as Spanish, Vietnamese, Mandarin, and more to include in the next update of our recommended literature list. So to submit a title for our committee to consider, please email our team at literaturelist@cde.ca.gov. We've also partnered with the News Literacy Project to develop a news and media literacy webinar series. That is those lessons and the series will be found on our California Educators Together website, and so you can always find it there. Now, connected to this work around literacy, and as our chair brought up recently around book banning, I want to highlight AB 1078. 1078 is a bill that was signed recently that prohibits the censorship or removal of inclusive books, inclusive materials, and curriculum resources. Thank you to Superintendent Thurman and Assemblymember Jackson for your support and care for all of our students in California. That is huge, and I just want to acknowledge that. Earlier this week, our State Superintendent of Public Instruction and our CDE staff hosted a paid internship summit that highlighted organizations and agencies that support California students with work experience, real work experience, along with pay that will support their future goals. In addition to that, next week, on Monday, Superintendent Thurman will launch a call to action to build a better future for California students, to drive student performance statewide and create a comprehensive plan inclusive of intended legislation and professional development to improve student performance in math and literacy. That is happening on Monday. We're very excited about that, and we welcome anyone who wants to work with us on this effort to drive student improvement. You can reach out at CA, student performance at cde.ca.gov to let us know if you are interested in working with us on this comprehensive plan to improve student performance. In addition, CDE will be releasing our data. So CASP and LPAC data will be released on Thursday publicly. And so we're excited to share that information as well, along with, along with our chronic absenteeism data as well. I'm also pleased to share that CDE and CTE continue to collaborate and share resources throughout the year. We're looking forward to upcoming joint efforts and presentations such as our November conference at the Credentialed Counselors and Analysts of California. The CCAC conference is coming up. I'm excited to be at the table with all of you. Such a committed group of individuals and folks working in the classroom. I'm just so glad to be here. So thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Brown.
You two are hard acts to follow, but I am so grateful and honored to be here with you all and welcome. So glad to see Mary, and we'll miss you so much, Marisol. But welcome. And RJ, yeah, we're on the same page already, which is great. I'll keep my comments brief. I wanted to, I always have something to say coming back from the community colleges, busy time, good times. And the community colleges are particularly interested in what the commission is doing around with waiting with bated breath for the pre-K to 3 credential, and also working diligently with an outstanding, thorough, and inclusive group called the Child Development Child Permit Work Group. We met again this week. The field connections that this work group has done on behalf of the commission is exceptional. And I think it's really important to recognize that. The group is the work group here that's running this work group. Community Circle, focus groups, presentations to Tri-CECE, great staff people, Renee, Marshall, Deborah Keeler, Bronwyn Kennedy, David, it was really great to see you at the last meeting. But these questions of the field, getting the field connections is essential for bringing early childhood into the commission work and into public education in an equitable way. It's a very diverse field, and this work group is also very diverse. And looking at advocating for the permit and then trying to make revise the permit in a way that will bring in some of the much more of the diversity of the field and also support the needs of employers for well-prepared staff. So I just wanted to highlight that because that's really important here in terms of that balance of bringing in all the different multifaceted aspects of teaching and learning, and how educators can partner with each other, with other educational institutions, and with families on behalf of children. So thanks for giving me a few minutes for that.
Any other reports before we move on to our Zoom participants? Nope. Okay. Go ahead, Madam Chair. You're muted.
Commissioner White-Smith and then Commissioner Pavre. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. Welcome back to Mary. So good to see you via Zoom. I also want to say welcome to RJ. I'm from South LA. I represent Inglewood. So glad to see another South LA colleague on the commission. I look forward to meeting you in person. I also want to shout out and give my praise to my fellow Bears. So Marisol, I'm sorry, we will miss you so much here. And you've given so much and you've been an inspiration to me as I came onto the board. So thank you so much for your service. And hello to Cheryl Cotton, who I had the pleasure of knowing when I was at Cal. So welcome also to the commission. I represent the AICCU, the Independent Not-for-Profit Colleges and Universities of Teacher Ed. And again, as always, my charge is to remind folks that we are here in partnership to help solve or be a part of the solution for some of the things that we're seeing here in the state of California. And so, as you all know, we credential almost half of the teachers in the state of California, and 75% of our institutions are actually emerging or already minority serving institutions. Many of us are Hispanic serving institutions. And as such, just want to give you an idea of some of the great things that our sector is doing in collaboration to solve some of the pipeline or pathway issues that we have. So many of us are in collaboration with our community colleges. And so right now, I know that my university, the University of San Diego, along with Simpson University, Dominican University, Santa Clara University, have partnerships with our local community colleges to develop pathways into either new ECE programs or our existing teacher prep programs. And in fact, Santa Clara University has a program that is fully online and is free of charge for future teachers from their Santa Clara Office of Education collaboration. So again, many of us work in partnership to help bring access and affordability to our constituents out there. We also many of us being MSIs or Hispanic serving institutions participate with Branch Alliance for Educator Diversity. And so I just want to give a shout out to the University of Laverne, which used those monies to completely redesign and to provide hybrid learning and pathways for folks in rural areas such as Kern County. I also want to shout out Cal Lutheran, as well as the University of San Diego for being new participants to Branch Ed in transforming their teacher prep programs. And then lastly, just want to share that the University of San Diego, the School of Leadership and Education Sciences, my institution, has recently been accepted as a co-participant, co-lead for the CEI 2.0 grant. So the Community Engagement Initiative that the CDE funds to support community engagement throughout the state of California, along with the San Diego County Office of Ed and Escolta School Research and Design. So 2.0 will be building on the work that was set by the San Bernardino County Office of Ed, the California Association for Bilingual Educators, and Family and Schools. And so we're really excited to begin and do that work. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesmith. Commissioner Pabry?
Good morning. Thank you. Firstly, welcome back, Mary. It's good to see you. And welcome to the Commission, Commissioner Cotton and Student Liaison Wicks. Really looking forward to working closely with both of you. Marisol, you will certainly be missed. I have been so impressed by the incredible leadership that you've provided to the Commission. Thank you so much. We at the CSU are incredibly happy to welcome our new Chancellor, Dr. Mildred Garcia. She is no stranger to California, to the CSU, to higher education. She brings so much rich leadership, vision, optimism. We're really looking forward to working under her leadership. Our own Department of Educator and Leadership Programs at the Chancellor's Office has been, like Kimberly was mentioning, we have several initiatives around outreach and recruitment efforts to continue to grow and diversify the educator pipeline. We've just in the last month reached close to 15,000 high school and community college counselors and high school students and their parents through participation in the statewide CSU high school and community college counselor conferences. It's been a really exciting opportunity to really get our small little team out and across the state and really talking one-on-one with our high school students and learning about their interests and their passions and sowing the seed for educator preparation, teacher preparation as such an exciting, rewarding career option and opportunity to give back. We've also started a community of practice for leveraging outreach and recruitment ideas and sharing resources across the CSU system. And I'm really looking forward to ways in which we can continue to share ideas and grow and share resources together to reach a diverse pool of educators and really impact who comes into the profession and how we prepare them and retain them in the field. I also have a few quick updates for you from our CSU Center for the Transformational Educator Preparation Programs, that's known as CTEP. This is a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funded center, which is focused on recruiting, preparing, and retaining BIPOC teachers for California's diverse learners. We have two resources that I wanted to put out there for you. I will make sure to share the links to these with the Commission staff so they can put them in the minutes. We have a course. It's a free online course called Setting the Foundation for Advancing Racial Equity in Education. This is free and available to anyone who's interested in taking this course and earning a digital badge. So I will, like I said, share the link with you. We also have some change packages. The center has been in existence for 3 years now. We're entering our last year. And 10 of our CSU universities are actively engaged in solving problems of practice using improvement science and really collecting data to make systemic changes in their programs. And our first cohort of campuses have engaged in this very deliberative, systematic effort over the past 2 years and have created change packages that are now available for wide dissemination. They are on our CTEP website. So I'll, like I said, share the link with you just so you have a sense for what these are. CSU Bakersfield has been working on supervising for equity. Cal Poly Humboldt has been working on quality feedback on DEI prioritized skills. CSU Northridge has been working on improving the diversity of the teacher candidate pipeline. And Cal Poly San Luis Obispo has been working on K-16 partnerships for Latinx teacher candidate hiring and retention. So we're happy to share these change packages with others. These are practices that have been developed through data-based decision-making and continue to be refined, but are available for others to learn from. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. And commissioners, thank you for being mindful of the time. It is 9:59. I think we're going to go through a first couple items, but I'm now going to recess. Let me back up. Do we have the liaisons have items to report? I think we may have already done that, but I want to make sure. Marisol, are you reading
Liaison
the room?
Rodriguez? Yes, Liaison Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, commissioners. Just have a few updates from the State Board of Education. Several of our members are preparing for the National Association of State Boards of Education, NASB, as I call it. No, they call it that too, which is taking place in San Diego later this month. Chair Darlene Hammond is the keynote speaker and has been named Policy Leader of the Year. Members Francisco Escobedo and Allison Yoshimoto Tauri are also hosting a session on community schools implementation. All three of those members have also been recently reappointed to their positions by the California State Senate. So speaking of community schools, the CDE is expected to post the RFA for a third round of implementation grants next month for board approval in 2024. Regardless of whether they have received planning grants, qualifying LEAs are encouraged to apply. As a reminder, one of the pillars is collaborative leadership and practices for educators and administrators and community schools are expected to orchestrate professional development responsive to educators' needs around culturally responsive instruction and positive school climates. As mentioned by Commissioner Cotton, and welcome, by the way, it's good to see you. CDE also has the application posted for the third round of National Board Certification Subsidy Awards on its website. Through this opportunity, teachers at any school with a 55% or more high need students, this is a majority of our state schools, can receive an award of $2,500 to attain their national board certification. Funds allowing, once they have been board certified, they can receive incentive grants up to $5,000 a year for 5 years for continued service in a priority school. And as a national board certified teacher who is currently maintaining my certificate, I have to say it is the most incredible professional development process I've ever undertaken. And that says a lot because I've had very good preparation. Finally, the board is also seeking applicants to serve on the Reading Difficulties Risk Screener Selection Panel to create an approved list of evidence-based, culturally, linguistically, and developmentally appropriate screening instruments for students in kindergarten through grade 2 to assess for risk of reading difficulties, including the neurological disorders such as dyslexia in languages spoken by California students. The application can be found on the board's webpage, and applications are due October 27th. And I would also like to just acknowledge Vice Chair Marisol de la Torre Escobedo. And, you know, the room won't be the same without you. Thank you.
Sorry, Student Liaison Wicks.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you once again for welcoming me. I am so excited to be here. Once again, my name is RJ Wicks. I am from Carson, California, which is a little city down in South LA, right next to Compton and Long Beach. I'm currently studying political science and education at Pepperdine University. I'm working on my multi-subject teacher credential, and I'll be completing my hours at Malibu Elementary in the first grade classroom with Mrs. Aaliyah Tate, and it's been such an amazing experience. I'm going to give a special shout out to Haiju and Rhonda for welcoming me and having such a smooth transition into Sacramento. It was super cool to be able to have my flight booked and come into the hotel and just have this whole experience. Yeah, it's just something really new and really exciting. It definitely beats living in the dorm. Yeah, and again, for the interview committee for interviewing me, I am so excited to meet all of you guys in person, and just putting faces to names. This is just such an exciting experience. I watched part of the last commission meeting, and I overheard all the amazing things you had to say about the other teacher or student liaison candidates. And again, I'm so honored that I was selected, and I thank you guys for selecting me. And I would love, you know, in the future, or if we can, if they're receptive to it, if the commission is, to meet with them as well. I think I heard someone had an experience of having to leave the teacher credentialing program and then coming back. And I know that's different from my experience, but I think those experiences should be highlighted at the table as well. So being able to bring the perspectives of the other students who wanted to have this position, I think it'll be a cool position to have some type of advisory committee or something, so I can continue meeting with them and having a more diverse perspectives. And speaking with other teacher preparation students, specifically at my school, I do just want to highlight some of the things that they requested, such as like a user-friendly website. I think overall the appearance can be a little bit daunting for some students, especially if you're not too sure about like how the process is to go into the teacher credentialing process. So there are ways that I can be of assistance and bring, you know, their perspectives on how to make it more user-friendly, with overall appearance and just easier things to navigate, with looking at the different tests we have to take and that TPA, which is coming up for me. Yeah, I think those would just be some things that they wanted to hear. And also similar to my interest in collaborating with other applicants for the student liaison position, I know a lot of my peers are also interested in interacting with other student teachers across the state of California. So whether that's through like regional conferences, could be, you know, in person or online, whatever we can do so we can continue conversations and learning from different people's experiences in the classroom. The state of California, as we all know, is a very diverse state. And even within Los Angeles, there's so many different types of classrooms that we have. So to be able to meet with other students from all across the state would be such an amazing, rewarding experience. And this is a little bit more personal to me and something that I was looking into when I was applying to this position. Just working on of course, the overall teacher credentialing process, but more specifically bringing diversity in the teaching force. I remember in high school, I've always had an interest in education. Ever since I was in kindergarten, I said I wanted to be a teacher. And as I got older, my ideas in education just continued to grow. So I remember in high school when I was looking more into just becoming a teacher, what that process would look like in college, I saw the statistic that only 2% of teachers nationwide are Black men. And for that to be the entire nation, that was just so mind-blowing to me. And as I continue going through education, kind of like why I have the political science background now and the conflict management thing, I'm just looking for ways on how I can make a difference, whether it is through the classroom or working in administrative positions, being at seats like this, to bring more diversity. I know the difference it can make for students like me, and representation, as we all know, matters so much for everyone, no matter if you are looking for someone who looks like you or just a different perspective overall. So looking for different ways we can recruit and retain more teachers of color is another one of my interests to do. And I'm excited to work alongside all of you, bringing different ideas and just hearing different perspectives on that issue. I'll try to keep this short. So I am currently getting connected with students at Pepperdine who recently completed their teacher credentialing process. I know Commissioner Davis, you were talking about the EdTPA. I'm just now starting the process of that, but I know I remember hearing all the different stories and experiences they had. So I'm excited to bring the perspectives of students who have completed the program and now into like the actual classroom, as well as perspectives of students like me who are currently going through the process and seeing different ways we can make this teacher credentialing process as smooth and still challenging, of course, so we can be prepared educators. And once again, thank you all for the warm welcomes. I'm so excited to serve and learn from everyone here. I remember looking at the commission members on the bios online, and I'm so honored that I can be sitting in a room with all of you guys. You guys are the change makers that I hope to be in the future. So once again, thank you, and I'm excited to get started.
Any other liaisons? I think not, but I want to make sure.
Nope, I think that wraps them up.
Thank you, Marisol. Student Liaison Wicks, I am really, really looking forward to getting to know you. Thank you again for being at our table. I now recess the general session and move to the Educator Preparation Committee. But before I turn it over to Commissioner Martinez, I want to thank the commissioners for being mindful of the time with your comments. I really appreciate each of you. Commissioner Martinez, will you please convene the committee?
Thank you so much. Let's see, before convening the committee, well, I'd like to call the 2023 meeting of the Educator Preparation Committee to order. But first, I would also like to welcome our new commissioners and thank you for the comments, Student Liaison Wicks. But also, I want to also share my sadness that Marisol's leaving. She represents the best of teachers. I mean, she brings to this meeting all the time your personal stories of your family and your community, which are always just so beautiful. You truly touch me when you share your stories because you're so grounded. Sorry to be so emotional, but every time she talks, she makes me cry. But most of all, Marisol is also a leader in high school redesign. She was a founding member of two very innovative high schools, East Palo Alto Academy High School with our other commissioner liaison here, and the co-founder of Inspire School of Arts and Sciences, demonstrating the power of project-based learning and performance-based assessment. Again, she represents the best of the best. We're fortunate that she's a lecturer, that she gets to inspire others, and we're also very fortunate that she comes from a Mexican immigrant family. So thank you, Marisol. So now I'll get to the more formal stuff. We have we have a total of 4 agenda items. 3 of these items are scheduled for today. The remaining items scheduled for tomorrow. Now, just to keep you guys motivated, we'll review 2 of the institutional approval agenda items first, and then we'll take a break. And then we'll do our last item before breaking for lunch. So we've got a long morning. We'll have a break in between there, and we'll go ahead and start with our first item. Our first item for today is item 2A, institutional approvals, stage 2, eligibility requirements for the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. This item is being presented by Hart Boyd. This is an action item. Mr. Boyd, will you please begin?
Yes, thank you. This item brings forward an institution currently in stage 2 of the initial institutional approval process. The Chicago School's main campus is located in Los Angeles, and the institution is regionally accredited by the WASC Senior College and University Commission. The Chicago School is seeking to offer a pupil personnel services school psychology program and has submitted responses to the 12 eligibility criteria. Criteria 1 through 9 have been reviewed by staff and determined to be aligned, while responses to criteria 10, 11, and 12 have been left to the Commission's determination. Additionally, the Chicago School has provided responses to the 2 initial program preconditions and general precondition number 9. These preconditions were reviewed by staff and have been found to be met. Considering the information provided in this item, staff recommends that the Commission grant eligibility to the Chicago School, which would allow the institution to move forward to stage 3 for consideration of provisional approval. Joining us today to answer questions related to the stage 2 submission are institutional representatives, Dr. Sarah Gollum, Department Chair, Ed S. School Psychology, San Diego, Dr. Rachel Lossoff, Department Chair, Ed S. School Psychology, Chicago, Dr. Lance Garrison, Dean for the College of Professional Psychology, and Dr. Miguel Valenzuela, Director of Accreditation, Licensure, and State Authorization. Thank you for joining us today, and staff is available to answer any process questions. Thank you.
Okay. We will now open for public comment. If there are any members of the public that would like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card or clicking the raise hand icon if participating through Zoom, or pressing *9 if participating by phone. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
We have no public comments on this item.
Okay. The public comment period for this item is now closed. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? And I'm going to look first at our Zoom participants so we make sure we don't miss them. But of course, please jump in at any time. Yeah, please. Commissioner Gross.
Thank you for this item. I wanted to ask a clarifying question. One of the things that I noticed in Criterion 10 was the paragraph around TCSPP using a national curriculum model. And I'm wondering how, I understand that the candidates would be in fieldwork placements and have that opportunity to in California classrooms, but I'm wondering what the bridge in the classroom is going to be to make sure that their candidates are also also prepared to teach in California classrooms. Because I understand the psychological background, like that stuff is the same. But so I wonder if we can get some response to that.
Sure, and thank you for the question. So it's two separate locations under the umbrella of one program. So in San Diego, we would be preparing our own candidates. They would be on ground. Some days would be hybrid to allow for flexibility so that perhaps they're only commuting for their field days. So we're aligned with the Chicago location in terms of, for example, program learning outcomes, our assessment plan, but we will be having our own separate operation in San Diego.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Commissioner Gross, please.
So will there be any curriculum adjustments, like to meet what your candidates in San Diego on the ground are experiencing?
Yeah, so we've already started to have some of those conversations. For example, most notably would be around assessment in California. My colleague here, Dr. Losov, I've already been in communication with her and some of those who instruct in assessment in Chicago, if that's something that they would want to do as well. But one of the things that we do under the national curriculum is recognize that there may be a need for regional or local differences. So down the line, if there are particular needs that are local, as we're seeing, for example, from our partners, that we need to make some adjustments at the curriculum and course level, we would be able to do that.
I'd also just like to add for commissioners that when they prepare their submission to offer their school psychology program, they have to meet California standards. So that bridge will have to happen at that time.
Thank you.
Other commissioners with questions? Okay. Online, we have Commissioner Coffrey.
I believe Commissioner Grinoshire was prior before me. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you, Shireen. I wonder if you could talk just a little bit more about how you will ensure that your candidates understand the diverse context in which they will be teaching in San Diego. You talk a little bit about it, but I would be interested in hearing more about that. And then secondly, just a clarification. On page 7, you indicate that the program exceeds the standards set by NASP, which is the National Association of School Psychologists. And I'm curious if you are NASP approved. Thank you.
Yeah, so the Chicago location actually did just go through their NASP program, and they are fully accredited. Now, to your point about diversity, that is something that we take very seriously. So not only do we have coursework, it's embedded throughout the curriculum, and it's something that we pay attention to with our field partners. It turns out that both of our partners, they are within the same East County SELPA, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be serving the same populations. And so we cannot be true partners if we're not listening to them. So the more that we can be engaged in that community and understand what are the needs that are arising, we can make sure that we're being responsive to it. But it has to be an ongoing conversation. And one thing that I would like to highlight that we would then model is my colleague in Chicago, Dr. Lothoff. They bring in a variety of DEI activities throughout the year. And that is something that we would do, but with an eye toward what are our local communities we can have, looking in terms of our elementary populations, our high school population, but it would have to be a very dynamic process to stay abreast of the needs that are arising.
If I just might, before Commissioner Pabry speaks, I appreciate your remarks. I think what I'm looking for is what's a conceptual framework that undergirds your curriculum related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And perhaps at another time you can come back and share that with us.
Of course.
Okay, Commissioner Pabry.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you so much for all the work you've done thus far in moving your curriculum forward. I am trying to still understand better how the San Diego context will be. I'm not quite sure what to call it, branch or a program. Will you be seeking separate NASP accreditation, for instance, from the Chicago? So you will be functioning as an independent unit with shared program learning outcomes and assessment plans. But I understand from the questions that my colleagues have asked you that the curriculum will be more localized to serve the community that in the San Diego and Southern California area. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's an excellent question, because this may be a model that is a bit up in the. So we would actually apply to extend the NASP accreditation to also include our San Diego outcomes. So we would be reporting all of our outcome data, and then internally we can see, what are the needs in San Diego, but we can look universally, how are we doing in preparing future school psychologists. But there is recognition that locations are different. And so there may be certain aspects we need to do in terms of our curriculum, our program sequencing, that may need to be adjusted, that we would have the autonomy to be able to do that.
Right. And then you talk about you have 3 full-time faculty. Will these 3 faculty be specifically for the San Diego program, or are these shared faculty with the Chicago program? Similarly, your fieldwork supervisors, will they be California school psychologists who are now mentoring candidates in preparation? Can you speak a little bit to the faculty capacity?
Of course, happy to. So the core faculty would be San Diego specific. And we're not going to ask our Chicago colleagues. We will have our own operations. They'll have their course loads here. And yes, our with the school partners, they would be local practitioners as well. So they're going to be embedded and entrenched within the San Diego needs. It's an excellent question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you're in stage 2, and this was probably addressed in stage 1. So Commissioner Martinez with a question. What is the demand? What is driving your institution to serve San Diego?
Yeah, it's a great question. Right now, there is one program at San Diego State, and they do a wonderful job. But in terms of the number of graduates they're able to support, there's still a need in terms of, we're seeing trends with the waiver credentials. And so one program is not able to keep up with the demand. And one of the things, and partly why I moved into this position when it became available, is that I look at it as one person, one resource. How can I be effective? And if that educating future psychologists, because there's a shortage, particularly around our practitioners who are coming from diverse backgrounds, to have that representation in the field. One program is not enough, and we're hoping to be able to carry that weight with them and add to future practitioners.
Thank you. Commissioner Simmons has a follow-up.
My question is maybe not so much for this particular program, but a concern that it seems like every meeting we have new programs going from one stage to another. And at what point does the commission's capacity to accredit institutions run dry? Because I think we are, and this will impact some of our other items down the road. I think that we're asking you to do more than what is reasonable for a finite number of people to do.
I appreciate that comment. I will just say that since we began this new IIA process, right, that's a much more intensive process. I think I know this off the top of my head, we've only added 7 new institutions over that time. And they do come in sort of in a staggered way, right? So they're not all being added to a single accreditation cohort. So it's not as if we stacked 7 new institutions in a year. They do come with a variety of programs, but in general, most of them, I believe, have been induction. So a district sort of breaking out from a consortium and wanting to serve their induction candidates directly. For those institutions that have offered preliminary programs, typically they've added maybe 2, in some cases, maybe 3 programs. We do ask them to sort of limit, Hart's making me a note, 7 fully approved institutions, since we began IIA. So at the moment, our capacity is good. We're holding strong. We're able to support these institutions as they roll out their programs.
Okay, when I was BIR trained, good Lord, 25 years ago, because there was no induction program that was part of accreditation, and I don't even think any of the CLEAR programs were part of accreditation. It was just the 3 courses at that time. So I think the number of programs we have, it's fair to say, at least in the last 25 years, have increased exponentially, like maybe tripled.
Yeah, absolutely. When we added induction to our accreditation system, we automatically added 150 new institutions that we had to support and accredit. And staff has increased a little bit over time, certainly to support that work. We're not adding 150 yet, but we're looking at it certainly, and we are happy to have the support of Executive Director Sandy as we bring these new institutions on, have those conversations.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Simmons, for raising that, and maybe something to talk about at a later time. That's a good point. Other questions for either CTC staff or the folks who are representing the program regarding their stage 2 eligibility? If not, it's an action item and we'll move to a vote. So
I could just jump in real quick in response to your question about the curriculum being specific to San Diego. I'm the department chair for the Chicago program and know the curriculum well. The curriculum in and of itself is not specific to a location. It follows the NAS curriculum and the domains that are required to be a nationally certified school psychologist. What makes the program specific to a geographic region is the practicum sites that the students are placed in, and the discussions that the students bring to their classes and their seminar classes. So I think what would allow the program to have the depth of the San Diego experience would be that they are placed out in sites that are local, and they would bring to their discussions in their seminar about some of the issues that they are experiencing and seeing out in their sites. So I just wanted to add to that question just from my perspective. So thank you. That was a good question.
great, thank you. I appreciate you adding that. Commissioner Heredia?
Thank you. I just thought of something. So I'm thinking about the curriculum is one curriculum across all the programs to meet the standards, to meet the standards that are necessary for the program. And although the coursework is not specifically so much to the area, to the region, but it's the experience that the students have in the area that bring about the diversity, in the sense that it raises the issues surrounding diversity. So my thought is that are all of your students supported by people who know how to respond to the issues related to diversity within San Diego, within whatever area that they're at? Because the students themselves are going to need guidance in their thinking. They're going to need guidance in, negotiating entry into communities so unfamiliar to them, perhaps so unfamiliar to them, which is in itself something that takes a while and understanding, and the nuances of a region or a culture, or community. So if one of you could just kind of address that briefly, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, because what we're really talking about is there may be a particular course, but the experience of that course at a local level will be enriched by the particular conversations and issues that arise. One of the things that I'm very looking forward to is the fact that we have the partners on the program design and implementation. And to be able to have those conversations, perhaps through speakers, we can bring that in during the coursework portion before students are entering the field, as you say, to support some of that as in pre-entry work. But then once they're in the field, to be able to have very frank conversations with their supervisors. Supervision has to be able to speak to issues of diversity and openness and curiosity. If a student is going to be resistant to that, that's something that we need to know in the program so that we can look at what measures we can put in place to increase that awareness and education. And it's going to be uncomfortable, and they're going to have to be okay with that, because just as they might need support in their assessment skills, they're going to need support in their understanding, awareness, and inclusivity in their approach. So that has to be something that is a competence and skill that's going to be addressed in all of their coursework, whether it's the law and ethics course, whether it's the practicum course, but starting really from day one so that they have that orientation, if you will, by the time they're ready to enter into their field site.
Great. Oh, okay. Commissioner Cardenas.
Good morning. I had a couple questions in regards to criteria 11. I noticed that you had other degree programs in Washington, D.C., and that was closed due to low enrollment. With this new location possibly opening up in San Diego, how will you assist students and candidates to obtain their credential? And what are some lessons that were learned in regards to recruitment and retainment of candidates?
Yeah, it's a great question. Unfortunately, that predates my time with the Chicago school a bit, but I will say that it also speaks to the fact that, you hope it doesn't come to that, but you do have a teach out plan, because ultimately when we enroll a student, we're committed to them. And so some of that may be a matter of what we're looking at in terms of the infrastructure. And, how, for example, myself, I'm connected with Dr. Lozoff, I'm connected with Dr. Garrison, our accreditation department. So we can be looking at, what's happening from the program side, our own internal systems, our own processes, to make sure that we're being aware and listening to students about their needs. And, unfortunately, it was not sustainable, and arrangements were made to still continue to support the student who remained. But it's unfortunate, but it is a reality that could happen. And so the best we can do is stay in communication with each other and make sure that our operations and systems are prepared. And if they're not working, be prepared to step in and address it.
I can address preparation question, if that would help. So our students are required to take the national certification exam to become a nationally certified school psychologist, as well as our state exam. So they're required to take that during their internship year and to pass one of those so that they are able to become licensed or certified in the state that they are in. So that is one way that we ensure that our students are eligible to become certified and to work as a school psychologist after they graduate the program.
Thank you for answering those questions. And you said that that's the way to ensure them, but I am really looking for supports, because also on criteria 12, you talked about that you use a Maxient program for monitoring. I don't know if you could talk a little bit in regards to that program.
Sure. Maxient is it's a portal where we can track basically if someone has a growth or remediation plan. But you speak to support, and I would highlight that the Maxient, it's just the system, and it's going to be more incumbent on whether it's the advisor, if it goes through, for example, our department chair, but to be having those conversations with the students. And again, they're uncomfortable, but it is aligned for growth. And in order to remediate a skill, you have to understand what the need is. And yes, maybe a student isn't being successful, but until you uncover the root of that problem, you cannot provide appropriate intervention. So Maxient is a way that what I would do, for example, is I enter all the checkpoints, whether each checkpoint is met or not. Ultimately, then it leads to a decision if there's further supports that are needed, something more intensive, or if perhaps it's at a point where we might need to counsel a student out of the program. But really, I would say it falls back on the advisors and the faculty. So you add things that are in place. So meeting with advisors, checking it, but not in just here's the course you need to take, but checking in with them. This is a professional school. We recognize that people are coming in, as adults with complicated lives, and just understanding where they are and what the actual needs are. And sometimes it's just that they need to be heard. Maybe they might need some support on how to balance the very real competing priorities. Not that one is more important than the other, but just they can't all be important at the same time. And just having a thought partner to work through that to ensure their success.
Hello, I would just like to add very briefly, if I might, that we have at the Chicago School a robust system of student support that help them from their entry to the program through their graduation from the program and beyond. Internally, we have our student support counselors who are there to provide support and connection to resources available to them as students, including free counseling services if they need that. We have a robust Center for Teaching and Learning that provides writing support and additional instructional support resources, in addition to the faculty that we have that are there to mentor, guide, and advise students as they move through their program.
I would just add one more thing. Every student is assigned to an advisor in their very first class, the professional development course, and that advisor stays with them through the duration of the program. So they always have a faculty advisor who they can go to and who provides kind of ongoing support. We hope they don't get to the point of needing remediation, but if they do, then we also have those structures in place as well.
Thank you. The reason I bring this issue up is because our school psychologists in our current system right now are doing a lot of work, and they're really hard to find. And they're such a huge support system for our students, and they're needed. And when they're going through this process, they're going to need to understand what they're coming into and how to find supports and how to get supports and make sure that they're supported through the process, because they may not be able to continue to go through this profession if they don't have that system in place for them. That's one of the reasons why I asked that. So thank you very much.
Appreciate your questions, Commissioner Cardenas, and your experience as a counselor in your own school and district. So thank you. So I think Commissioner Pabri, and then we'll bring this to a vote.
Thank you. So you were talking about the wraparound supports that you provide to the students currently in the Chicago school. Am I understanding correctly that the San Diego, I'm just going to call it a center, I'm not quite sure what, a program, is it, do you have beyond school psychology offerings, or is school psychology going to be the only program you offer there? And are you going to replicate all these wraparound services for your students locally in San Diego, or will they be reaching out and through online modalities for advising and, you know, mental health and other kinds of supports? If you could speak to that.
Sure. So we do have other programs. So for example, in San Diego, we have ABA, you know, Business and IO, MFT. So I'm actually on campus right now. So we have other programs, but not in the EPP sphere. And then in terms of supports, yes. So they will have the local supports. They'll have access to student support counselors. Some of those will be connecting, you know, by email, by Zoom to set up appointments. But yes, so whichever of our campus locations they might be in, they have access to all of those services. And yes, they would have their advisors would, as their kind of primary point person, would be here.
Okay. Not seeing any other questions. This is an action item. And do I have a motion to either grant eligibility to the Chicago School of Professional Psychology to move forward to stage 3 or deny eligibility? And please state your name as a commissioner for folks on Zoom. Commissioner De La Torres?
Yes, Commissioner De La Torre, I grant to deny, to approve, to grant.
Okay. You may.
I move to grant.
Okay. Eligibility for the Chicago School of Professional Psychology to move to stage 3. Do I have a second?
Second, Commissioner Davis.
Great, thank you. Okay. Should we take a vote? Further discussion, I guess. All right, will the recording secretary call for the vote? Each member, please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Danette Brown. Aye. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Cheryl Compton.
Aye.
Juan Cruz.
Aye.
Christopher Davis.
Aye.
Michael De La Torre.
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo.
Aye.
Makita Gwino Shire.
Aye.
Megan Gross.
Aye.
Johanna Harwick.
Aye.
Susan Aradia.
Aye.
Bonnie Clark.
Aye.
Ira Lett.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you, everyone. And thank you to the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. We appreciate your national reputation, your accreditation, and I think you can hear from us our emphasis on serving our local community here in California. Thank you so much. And Mr. Boyd, thank you as well. Next, we have item 2B, initial institutional approval, stage 3, consideration of provisional approval for the Charter School of San Diego. This item is being presented by Hart Boyd. It's an action item. Mr. Boyd, will you please begin?
Yes, thank you. This item presents the Charter School of San Diego's responses to stage 3 of the initial institutional approval process for the Commission's consideration and possible provisional approval. It should be noted that the Commission granted stage 2 eligibility to the Charter School of San Diego prior to its adoption of changes to the IIA process at its October 2022 meeting, which included moving institutional responses to the initial program preconditions to stage 2. This is why responses to these preconditions are provided in the stage 3 submission. On page 2 of the item, you will find the 5 stages of the IIA process chart with the current stage, stage 3, highlighted. The chart notes that provisional approval means an institution is approved, but the institution cannot offer the proposed programs until stage 4, in which the program standards and preconditions will be reviewed to determine alignment. The proposed program will then be brought before the Committee on Accreditation, who may approve or deny the program. As noted on page 3 of the item, the Charter School of San Diego is proposing to offer a teacher induction program. Also on this page, you will find the link to the institution's complete submission, including the responses to the common standards and initial program preconditions. Excerpts from the Charter School of San Diego's responses to the common standards are provided on pages 4 through 13. A team of Board of Institutional Review members reviewed, collaborated, and came to a consensus aligned on all common standards. Summaries of the Charter School of San Diego's responses to the two initial program preconditions and general precondition number 9 are provided on pages 13 and 14 of this item. Actually, there's no general precondition number 9, they're a teacher induction program. Review of the precondition submission was completed by commission staff, and these preconditions have been found to be met. In conclusion, based on the findings of met for all common standards and relevant preconditions, staff would like to recommend provisional approval for the Charter School of San Diego. It is recommended that the provisional approval be set for a period of 3 years so that in the 3rd year, a provisional site visit can occur and data can be collected. After the provisional site visit, a report will be brought before the Commission for consideration of full approval, which is a part of the 5th and final stage of the IIA process. Joining us today are institutional representatives Catherine Rambo, Dean of Academic Affairs and Studies, and Veronica Radke, Human Resources Administrator. They will be available to answer any Stage 3 submission questions you may have, and staff is available to answer any process questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Boyd. We will now open for public comment. If there are members of the public that like to give a presentation, please notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card if you're here. If you're on Zoom, click the raise hand. If you're participating through phone, press *9. Recording secretary, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
All right, it looks like there are any public comments. So we will now close the public comment period for this item. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? I'm going to look at my Zoom participants first. Okay, Commissioner Gross.
So I appreciate this packet and a wondering I have, it's actually not a wondering, it's actually a concern. So when we're doing induction, people have a credential that they could move anywhere through California and teach. And so one of the notes here on page 2B13 is related to the concern that the current induction programs that teachers who are teaching at dashboard alternative school status schools for non-classroom based online schools, their traditional induction program isn't necessarily meeting their needs of their current online teaching. And so I guess my concern is that induction candidates in CSSD at any of the charter schools from the original MOU may not always teach in non-traditional classrooms. And so our induction is meant to prepare candidates for their teaching credential. And one of the greatest concerns I see as a teacher on special assignment supporting young teachers who completed their credential program during COVID is that they had no experience in classroom with 30 to 40 kids. And how do you have proactive behavior management? Because they only taught online on Zoom. And so I hear that the need to balance, like I need my induction program to support in my employment, in my position. But I also think as someone who teaches in a traditional classroom, I want to make sure that as people have mobility throughout the state, they're adequately prepared for what the majority of employment placements are in California. And I'm concerned about that. And I think it kind of goes back to Commissioner Simmons' original question about what is our capacity to continue to accredit. I recognize that we have this opportunity for people to create programs and go through this process. But is it the right thing to do when we have multiple induction programs in this county that people are already accessing? So I don't know if there's a question there, there's a concern.
Yeah, so if maybe staff could respond to the concern, yeah.
If I can respond from the Charter School of San Diego's perspective, while we definitely hear the concern of the traditional experience, although we are non-classroom based, we have in-person instruction in our resource centers. So we do have physical locations where students are coming in for that in-person instruction. So teachers they have that experience of teaching. Mind you, it's a smaller group because of the nature of our personalized and individualized program, but they still have that direct teaching, instruction experience, collaborative approach, project-based learning, all of those different components, just on a smaller scale.
I'll just do a follow-up question to Commissioner Gross. When the students do come in, it's once a week, is that right? And then is it whole group or is it individual? I appreciate that your teachers are clearly going to be need to be very gifted in personalized instruction for sure. But can you give us a little bit, maybe a sense of some of the pedagogy that they use when the students are in classroom and how often the students are on campus?
Sure. So students are on campus based on what their needs are. So anywhere from 2 to 3 days a week, maybe even 4 if they need to. And when they're in class, they have their small group instruction with their credential teacher, and it's usually math focused because that's the greatest area of need, but it could also be social studies, science. They do wet labs on campus, English workshops. And they also get one-on-one tutoring with teachers. So there is a diverse instruction that's happening. And again, it's based on what they need, their skill level, as well as the subject-specific requirements that are required.
Thank you. Commissioner Simmons.
I share Commissioner Gross's concern. I think that we probably need an item in the future talking about induction and accreditation. I think that for the purposes of this item, though, we can control what a preliminary program's clinical practice looks like. For an induction program, I don't think we can hold the candidate responsible for where their employment is, because their induction has to fit whatever it is within their credential area. So I share the concern. I just don't think that that concern will not impact my vote on this item.
Thank you for the clarification. Other commissioners? Okay. Any more discussion? Okay. This is an action item. Do I have a motion to either grant provisional approval to the Charter School of San Diego and set the provisional period to be 3 years from the date the institution's program is approved by the Committee on Accreditation, or deny eligibility? Commissioner Clapp.
Can I add one little comment before I make a motion? Am I allowed to do that?
I think you have to make the motion first and then we can discuss. Does that sound right? Yeah.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and then move to approve.
Okay.
Their induction program.
Okay, appreciate that. And do I have a second from Commissioner Clapp? Okay.
Commissioner Davis.
Commissioner Davis seconds the motion. Now we're going to open for discussion. Commissioner Clapp, might you have a comment?
It's a small comment, I think. I remember when we approved this program the last time, and one of the things that I'm really interested in hearing about once it's in practice, so I hope we get a chance when you come back for the next stage, is just that it sounded like there would be a lot of embedded time for induction, the teachers to work with the teachers that are going through induction. And I think that's an opportunity we don't often have in a traditional program because of schedules. So I'm really excited and interested to hear how you make use of that. It sounds to me like there really will be very robust opportunities for the inductees and the mentor teachers to work together. So I'm excited to hear how that goes the next time you're here.
Yeah.
If you're approved, I don't want to assume that, that the motion hasn't passed yet.
Yeah, and it's a great point if they're approved. There's a lot of learning we can all do here as schools have moved to online to hybrid. So it's a really great point about what we can do in terms of our own learning from your all's experience. Any further discussion before we go for a vote? Okay, recording secretary, will you take a vote? Each member, please respond with aye, nay, or abstain.
Annette Brown.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Abstain. Jose Cardenas.
Aye.
Cheryl Cotton.
Aye.
Juan Cruz.
Aye.
Christopher Davis.
Aye.
Michael De La Torre.
Aye.
Marisol De La Torre Escobedo.
Aye.
Makita Quino Shire.
Aye.
Megan Gross.
Nay.
Johanna Howick.
Aye.
Susan Aradia. Bonnie Clark.
Aye.
Ira Lit.
Aye.
Monica Martinez.
Aye.
David Simmons.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Great. Thank you to the charter school, and thank you, Mr. Boyd. And we'll move on to item 2C after a break. So we're going to go ahead and have a break. If you guys can try to return a little bit after 11 o'clock. We have a lot of public comments for our next session. So get comfortable, and we'll see you back for 2C.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Try it one more time, Executive Sandy.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. All right, let me get the room quiet, and I'll start over again. And because you guys like to hear me in echo, I'm going to repeat everything I said before. So our last Educator Preparation Committee item for today is item 2C, the annual report on the commission approved teaching and administrator performance assessment. This item is being presented by David DeGuire, Zoltan Sarda, Gay Roby, Heather Klesch, Evaluation Systems of Pearson, Richie Ulrich with Fresno Assessment of Student Teachers, and Julia Waltheimer from Cal State, Fresno. This is an information item. Executive Director Sandy will now begin the presentation, and hopefully she won't be in stereo.
Seriously. Thank you so much, Commissioner Martinez. Unfortunately, Amy Rising is not here today. She's had a family emergency, so I'm going to do a little framing of this item before turning it over to the staff. Just to bring everybody up to the same page in terms of the history of this work, performance assessments were established in statute through a bill, Senate Bill 2042, initiated in 1998 that took effect in 1999. The period of time from 2000 to 2008 was a period of deep development of different models. The performance assessment for California teachers was a model that developed by a number of university faculty cross sectors. The Cal TPA was developed by the commission with a design team of diverse practitioners and teacher educators. The FAST system was developed in Fresno. And there was a lot of interaction across the communities of faculty and practitioners that were working on performance assessments. The context in which this assessment requirement became statute was during the standards and assessment movement in the 1990s, and a perception that was pretty widespread that there was a great deal of unevenness in teacher preparation across the state, with 80 or so institutions offering hundreds of different pathways into teaching. There was a concern that we didn't have kind of a steady outcome that was consistent. And so what the commission at the time did was, instead of putting another standardized test into the system, The commission took a look at what was happening with the national board certification process that preceded us, took a look at what we were doing in the induction space with development of formative assessment to help it guide the conversations that new teachers would have with their mentors. And what we conceptualized in statute in that time in Senate Bill 2042 was a performance assessment system that would be fully embedded and fully integrated into the teacher preparation sequence, and that it would be unlike a standardized test. It would enable a relationship between the candidate, developing a portfolio for review and scoring, to do so in relationship with each other, in conversation with each other within the context of their teacher preparation program. It was intended, and you can see in the statute that we included in your agenda item, which is Ed Code 44320.2, that the legislature really had a vision here, and the commission, I think, helped to shape that vision, that this be both formative and summative, that the commission would have an expectation for the outcome for candidates, but really that the most important uses of that outcome included informing the candidate about where they stood in relation to their preparation and their practice, but also critically to inform teacher preparation programs about how their cohorts of candidates were engaging with key tasks that are authentic teaching tasks. And then the third real audience for this was accreditation at the state level, giving us some insight into patterns of performance and patterns of development of the education workforce that we could follow up on through our accreditation work. That was the vision established in statute. It's the vision that we attempted to launch back in 2000, and that great developmental period through 2008 was very innovative in discussion. It became consequential in 2008 for candidates. And then in 2015, we received funding to overhaul and update the Cal TPA and to develop the California Administrator Performance Assessment. All of these models must meet design standards that the Commission has adopted, and all of that is consistent with what the Education Code requires for us to do. We had a study session in June of 2022 where we had a panel of a couple of candidates who'd gone through the system, a couple of faculty from Teacher Prep, Linda Darling Hammond and Kat Peck, also presenting on the research around this. The Commission, I think, has had a great interest in the concept and the opportunity that performance assessment presents to us. There are challenges, of course, in doing assessment this way. And I think we've embraced the challenges to date. And our motto is that when we know better, we do better. So we have an opportunity here today to look at the data from 5 years of administration of the various TPAs that have been approved and the Administrator Performance Assessment, and to update you on some other development that is underway with versions of performance assessment, but also really to get down to discussion around some ideas about what we're learning so far, what the field is bringing to us and sharing their perspective and their experiences with it. And what kind of an opportunity does this present for us here at the Commission to take another deep look at and to commit ourselves to our own continuous improvement and kind of set our sights on what the next steps should be with respect to this key part of our preparation system. With that, I'm going to turn it over to David DeGeer. And I've asked the team to speed wrap you if necessary so that we can get through the overview of data and get into your questions and to hear from the field as they come to the table. So David.
Thank you, Executive Director Sandy. So this item presents data on all of our performance assessments. We've got the Teaching Performance Assessment, or TPA, and Administrative Performance Assessment data from 2018 through 2023. The Commission has approved 3 different TPA models: the Cal TPA, the Ed TPA, and the Fresno Assessment of Student Teaching, or FAST. And the Commission has approved 1 Administrative Performance Assessment, and that's the Cal APA. We will also provide you an update on additional work that's going on related to performance assessment, especially related to education specialist candidates, our California formative TPA for early childhood educators, and the development of the literacy performance assessment, which is scheduled to debut in July of 2025. And then finally, in the spirit of continuous improvement, we have some ideas for the commission to consider on how we might improve our performance assessment system here in California. So we want to give you a quick overview of the different models. The Cal TPA has two different instructional cycles. The first one is about learning about students, and here we're looking at the education specialist model. So it's specifically about students with IEPs and planning instruction. Cycle 2 then is about assessment-driven instruction for students with IEP. So that's the idea also with the general education model, that it's learning about students and then it's assessment-driven instruction for students. The EdTPA structure has 3 tasks: planning, instruction, and assessment of learning. Multiple subject candidates also have a 4th task associated with either elementary literacy or mathematics, and that's at the choice of the candidate and program. The multiple subject handbook has 18 rubrics and a passing score of 49 out of 90 points. The single subject handbooks have 15 rubrics and a passing score of 41 out of 75 points. And the World Language Handbook has 13 rubrics and a passing score of 35 out of 65 points. So the EdTPA data is separated differently than the Cal TPA data and the FAST data because of this different number of rubrics. The EdTPA uses the same structure for education specialist candidates for mild to moderate support needs and extended support needs. That one has 15 rubrics and a passing score of 35 out of 75 points. Okay, sorry for this one, must have got out of sequence. This is the Cal TPA general education cycle. Again, cycle 1 is learning about students and planning instruction. The passing score on those 8 analytic rubrics is 19 out of 40 points. One thing that's different is that only one score of 1 is allowed. Cycle 2 is about assessment-driven instruction. And with those 9 rubrics, a passing score of 21 out of 45 points is required. And again, only one score of 1 is allowed. The FAST structure has 2 different parts to it. First, there's the site visitation project. This is completed during initial student teaching. Multiple subject candidates, their content area is math. In this part of the assessment, they plan a single lesson, they implement that lesson, and then evaluate instruction. Both of the parts of the FAST have 3 rubrics. Nope, I'm sorry. This one has 3 rubrics. The other one has more rubrics. Thank you, Juliet. The minimum score is 2 on each rubric. So passing score is 6 out of 12 and no score of 1 is allowed. And then the second part is the teaching sample project. This is completed in final student teaching. Multiple subject candidate content is literacy, plus an additional content area of their choice. For all candidates, they identify the context of the classroom. They plan and teach a series of at least 5 lessons with a focus on content knowledge. They assess students' learning before, during, and after the unit. They document their teaching and their students' learning and then reflect on the effectiveness of their teaching. This one has 7 rubrics, minimum score again of 2 on each rubric. So passing standard is 14 out of 28 points. And again, no score of 1 is allowed. So moving on to the administrator performance assessment, the Cal APA, that has 3 cycles. The first one is analyzing data to inform school improvement. It has 8 rubrics and a passing score of 15 out of 40 points. The second cycle is on facilitating communities of practice. It has 7 rubrics with a passing score of 14 out of 35. And the final cycle is supporting teacher growth. That one has 7 rubrics with a passing score of 14 out of 35 points. And now we will look at the results and analysis of those results, and I'll turn it over to Zoltan.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm pleased to be able to present the data for CalTPA for you today. I'd like to start with a word about our data methodology, data collection and analysis methodology. We look at the data in a variety of ways to help us understand the real experiences of how a candidate approaches their TPA and how they process through it over sometimes multiple years. So we have some terms. So we have the best attempt pass rate, and that is looking at the pass rate for candidates who may have taken the assessment more than one time. And this is also can be over multiple years. So sometimes candidates are in 2-year programs, sometimes they're in internships where they are in that placement for 2 years. Sometimes they pause their studies and do something else for a while and then come back and take the TPA. So looking at it across multiple years gives us a real insight into the actual passing rate for this assessment, for these assessments. The first attempt pass rates help us to understand where candidates are in terms of their ability to pass on the first attempt. And we really pay close attention to this. We want to minimize the number of times candidates have to resubmit in order to eventually pass these assessments. And then we look at the first attempt mean scores, and those are designed to help us understand at a detailed granular level what parts of the assessment candidates are struggling with, and to provide information to both programs and to candidates as well through a variety of means to help them understand the details of where they might bolster their submissions when they resubmit. There's a note about the data. So we had executive order candidates who moved into received preliminary credentials under the COVID flexibilities. And they recently, with Senate Bill 114, the requirement for those candidates to complete the TPA was waived permanently. So there were many of those candidates who had begun that process that were still in the data, and they did not have to finish that assessment. So we have eliminated those candidates from the data because their presence in the data was not giving us a clear understanding of really what was going on in terms of passing rates. So that resulted in 3,831 candidates from the CalTPA being removed from the data, and 863 from EdTPA. So here's the results for CalTPA. Again, this first slide looks at overall pass rates, the number of candidates passing by each of the 5 program years. We had that dip in 2020, 2021 because of COVID. I'm pleased to say that we have seen an increase in the subsequent years to all-time highs in this last program year. This refers to that best attempt pass rate for CalTPA candidates passing both cycles. So what we see is when candidates attempt both cycles, they may take multiple times, and this may take over the course of more than 1 year to complete the assessment. We see on average for the first 4 years, 98% passing rate for those multiple attempts. And then the most recent year, we see 95%. We expect that as candidates complete their assessment, that there's 2 cycles in the coming years, and particularly in this year, those numbers will adjust to some degree. We're also looking at first attempt and best attempt pass rates by ethnicity and race and ethnicity. And what we see here is on the first attempts, there are listed in blue, the blue bars are the first attempts. We see that for first attempts across subgroups, we see a passing rate of between 73 and 82%. And then the red bars are related to all attempts, best attempt pass rate. And when we look at those figures, we see that the range drops to 4%, and so those rates range between 95 to 99% pass rates. This is what I was mentioning earlier about the looking at the first attempt by rubric, so we can really get a granular picture of what's going on for candidates. So this is for cycle 1. So, and this, we didn't put the table here. It's quite a complex table, so it's in your item. But what we see is that the mean scores are relatively consistent across the years, and there's no significant variation, statistically significant variation across those years. And they're hovering right around the 3.0 mark. This is an important mark for the CalTPA because that level 3 represents descriptions of performance that are directly related to the TPEs. And so a candidate scoring 3s on this assessment would really mark that they're at the TPE level as those TPAs are written. We have looked at, in particular, over the last couple of years and last year particularly, for rubric 1.6, which focuses on candidates explaining next steps for learning to the students and higher order thinking strategies with their students. And then 1.7, which is focused on their ability to reflect on their planning and their instruction. And then 1.8, to be able to apply that reflection to next steps for their students' learning, thinking about the future for their students. We have made revisions to the assessment guide. We have provided lots of clarity in our Meredith Fellows Implementation Conference, in our coordinator meetings, in office hours, and then in meetings with individual programs as well. For cycle 2, this is table 4 in your item. We see again that the scores are consistent across the years. They're slightly higher than cycle 1. This reflects that the CalTPA is designed on a formative design, whereas cycle 1 is a little simpler, a little bit less complex in nature, and it's intended for candidates to be taking that probably in their first semesters of student teaching. Cycle 2 is a bit more complex because it's really developing assessments and that drive the instruction. But we do see, because most candidates are later in their experience of their student teaching, that we do see those higher passing rates. We are looking at, what we have looked at for that particular rubric is providing some clarity for rubrics 2.1 and 2.2 and 2.6 and 2.7 about the definitions of the differences between assessments and rubrics. And then for rubric 2.4, which is students' use of technology, we have added an extra source of evidence so candidates can explain more what is seen in the video clips. Here's some data about candidates who have not yet passed across the 5 program years. And again, we see a low of 0.3% in that first year. And in the most recent year, a high of 5.3%. These last 2 years, 2021, 22, 22, 23, may be due again to candidates taking multiple years to actually to complete that assessment. And we are monitoring these numbers to see if that if that holds true. We again have candidates who have not submitted both cycles. So again, this goes to the nature of how candidates approach this work. So we're seeing increases in numbers for the last 2 years on candidates who have submitted cycle 1 but not cycle 2, and then the inverse of that, they've submitted cycle 2 but not cycle 1. And again, with these last 2, the ends in these last 2 years, we will monitor that to see progress towards candidates completing those cycles. And then this is a key, again, we are really focused on candidates taking multiple attempts to pass the assessment. What we see here across the years is the vast majority of candidates pass it on their first attempt. And then another large majority of the remaining candidates passing it on their second attempt. We again monitor this data because we don't want candidates to be taking 3, 4, 5 attempts. We do work with ES very closely, and we reach out to programs when we see candidates that are submitting multiple times and not having success to provide them some information about how they can further support their candidates. And with that, I will turn it. Oh, and this is the same data for cycle 2. We see again, vast majority of candidates passing on their first attempt, and then a large majority of the remaining candidates passing on their second attempt. With that, I will turn it over to, actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to continue with our ed specialist. Again, our candidates passing both cycles. We have data from 1 year of implementation for the ed specialist Cal TPA with 141 mild moderate support needs candidates and 46 ESN candidates passing. Again, we see best attempt pass rates for 94% to 100% pass rates for those candidates. Here is the first attempt pass rates for both cycles by race and ethnicity. We put this in as a table because there are the data, the numbers, the ends are so small that we don't include ends less than 10. It looked kind of funny in some graphs. But what we see is, again, candidates passing at about the same rate across subgroups as they did for the Gen Ed Cal TPA. And again, looking at first attempt mean rubric scores for cycle 1 and cycle 2, they're similar as the Gen Ed Cal TPA in terms of those passing rates. One thing that we notice in cycle 2 is that the plan rubrics are somewhat higher than they are for Gen Ed. We speculate that this may be due to ed specialist candidates being much more deeply trained in terms of looking into IEPs and understanding students' backgrounds and their learning needs at that sort of more focused level, which may support their submission for step 1. Now I'll turn it to TPA.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, commission staff. My name is Lori Kroger. I am a senior area director with Evaluation Systems. I'm here representing, we'll share the EdTPA data with you as the technical and operational partner for the model sponsor, which is Stanford. And you have it right. So what you see here are the data very similar to what we saw for Cal TPA, that dip in the total number of candidates who have passed EdTPA. Again, this is a multiple subject, single subject, and world language candidates combined, and we saw that expected dip in 2022. Also with the current year, we have the highest number of candidates who have passed. The best attempt pass rates, this is separated out this time. This is only multiple subject and single subject data. You can see there's high 90s, so 95%, then 3 years of 97% pass rate. This year, a little bit of a drop with 93% pass rate for multiple subject and single subject candidates. That's not entirely unexpected, figuring that those candidates may not yet have resubmitted. So we would expect to see that number increase. The world language, the data for world language candidates, this one, you do see that it's 94%, 95%, 98%, 92%, and then there's a drop of 11% this past year. So the year that we just completed had an 81% best attempt pass rate. That decrease is noted, and so ES is committed to working with the model sponsor, with commission staff, and California Ed Prep programs to understand this trend and to provide supports to both programs and candidates as needed. The multiple subject and single subject first attempt and best attempt pass rates are disaggregated here by race and ethnicity. The difference between the first attempt pass rate and the best attempt pass rates range from 78% to 97% across all groups, with a difference in pass rates for all candidates. So when we add all groups together, the first attempt pass rate is 88% and the best attempt is 96%. The data that you see on the screen now is the first attempt and best attempt pass rate for world language candidates. This ranges from 61% to 97% across those various groups, with that difference in pass rates for all candidates combined being 67% pass rate on the first attempt and a 91% pass rate on the best attempt. So as indicated before, we are committed to working both with CTC staff, with the model sponsor, and EPP programs across California to understand these data and to learn what supports can be provided to both programs and candidates. Just like for the CalTPA data, we also take a look at the first attempt mean rubric scores. This is table 17A in the item. The mean scores are relatively consistent across the years. Rubrics 3 and 12 are consistently the highest scoring rubrics. Those areas are using knowledge of students to inform teaching and providing feedback to guide further learning. Rubrics 10 and 13 are consistently the lowest scoring rubrics. That's analyzing teaching effectiveness and students' understanding and use of feedback. In the 18 rubric handbooks, I added, just so that you can see that rubrics 16 and 18 are the lowest in those in that additional task. So that's analyzing whole class understandings and using evidence to reflect on teaching. Support has been provided and will continue to be provided to California EPPs through monthly coordinator checkpoint meetings that I facilitate. Also deep dives into the multiple subject handbooks, particularly that fourth task that is the opposite content area as the first three tasks. We've done deep dives into that, and then also dedicated EdTPA sessions at the Meredith Fellows Implementation Conference. The world language data, this is 17B in your packet, again, means relatively consistent across the years. This does say rubric 3, but it should say rubric 11 is consistently a high scoring rubric, and that's providing feedback to guide further learning. And rubrics 8 and 9 are consistently the lowest. And so that is the use of subject-specific pedagogy and analyzing teaching effectiveness. So again, supports have been and will be continued to be provided to coordinators and to EPPs in the ways that you see here through meetings, deep dives, and the implementation conference. And again, working with commission staff and the model sponsor and California EPPs to better understand the nature of the world language TPA. The data that are presented here just provide additional context regarding the number of candidates who first submitted an EdTPA in each of the 5 program years, but have not yet passed the assessment, indicating that they're not yet eligible to earn their preliminary credential. It is important to know that with EdTPA, because it's not the cycles like CalTPA is, some of these candidates may have started and submitted their first attempt in one program year and then submitted their second attempt and passed in a subsequent program year, just the way that kind of works out. The number of attempts before passing for multiple subject and single subject candidates, you can see here, the vast majority of candidates do pass on their first attempt. You can see the data for the second attempt and third attempt. Similar, we want to help reduce the number of attempts that candidates take. You see that there's 314 from the most recent program year that have not yet passed. Again, as those candidates resubmit, we would expect to see that number decrease. And then world language attempts, very much the same, a large number of candidates who are passing on their first attempt, but there are a slight increase in the number of candidates that are needing a subsequent attempt to pass the world language handbook or the world language assessment. And again, just to reiterate our commitment to working with California EPPs and the commission staff and the model sponsor to look at these data. I'll talk briefly about Ed Specialist. Similar to Ed Specialist Cal TPA, we have 1 year's worth of data to share with you, and it's very positive data. You can see that for the first, the best attempt pass rate, we had 163 candidates and 98% of them passed. When we look at the first attempt and best attempt broken out by ethnicity, the range here is from it's a very tight range of 96% to 100%. So many candidates are passing on their first attempt with this. The Table 17C provides the first attempt mean rubric scores for the Ed Specialist Ed TPA. Rubric 6 and 12 are the highest scoring rubrics this first operational year. That's the learning environment and providing feedback to guide further learning. And rubrics 10 and 11 were the lowest performing rubrics in this first operational year. And that's analyzing teaching effectiveness and analyzing the focused learners' performance. What we have done is provide, again, support through those coordinator meetings, both in person and virtual deep dives into this particular handbook, and then also dedicated sessions at this year and last year's Meredith Fellows Implementation Conference.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Juliette Wallleitner. I'm the Director of Educator Preparation Programs at Fresno State, and I am here to discuss the small but mighty FAST with you all. So I feel like what I have to share follows right along with much of what has already been shared. So if you can see, here is the table showing all attempt passing candidates for I am just speaking about our multiple subject and single subject today. But from 2000, I can't see that, I can see it in mine, 2018-19 through 2022-23, we did not have the dip that we saw in the other models in 2020-21. I don't have a great explanation for that other than to say that we really encouraged our candidates to go ahead and attempt the FAST during that time period, even though instruction was so disrupted. So I think that may be the reason. Moving on to the next one, all attempt pass rates, majority pass on their first. Those that don't typically pass on their second. Slight dip in 2022-23. Not exactly, you're still looking into why that might be. If we looking at pass rates for the site visitation project, which is what they do complete in their first semester of student teaching, looking by race and ethnicity, you know, it's pretty consistent, 96.7% for all, ranging from 97.7 to, or no, I'm sorry, Southeast Asian, there was a dip last year. But again, that's a really small number of our total candidates. So overall pretty high. And then similarly with the TSP, those rates have stayed relatively stable across the years. And so if you want to look at the mean scores by rubric, those are available on tables 19 and 20. Again, the mean scores have remained fairly consistent by program across the 3 years of data. And the mean scores typically fall between 2.5 and 2.9 in both programs. I will say on a programmatic level, you know, we see these pretty consistent scores, and it doesn't give us really, you know, one of the benefits of FAST is that we are locally controlled and we can use these data to inform the work we do. And so we're piloting some attempts this semester to look at the scores on specific bands within each rubric so we can more specifically target our instruction to maybe address areas where candidates might be struggling, so we can get those scores closer to 3s across the board. I can't remember. So thank you very much.
And moving on to Cal APA, my name is Gay Roby, and working with our administrative services credentials. I work with both preliminary and admin and clear admin programs. So our first slide shows that we are bouncing back from that 2-year dip that we talked about with our Cal TPA, and numbers are increasing higher and higher. The next 2 slides will be wonderfully boring. Our pass rates are at 100% with our admin services credential candidates. So first attempt is a little bit lower than that. Best attempt shows 100% passage, and followed by our race and ethnicity tables, where it's broken out, also at 100%. We have one little one that dipped 99%, but it's not statistically significant. So we're still having 100% in our Cal APA results. For our first attempt mean score, which is on page 25, table 25, page 27, sorry. Mean rubrics have remained very consistent across the years, and none of the slight differences have any statistical significance.
So in the interest of time, we're going to skip our presentation about section 3, which is an update on the different work that's being done. So we'll refer you back to the item. But we've really thought a lot about how we can improve our performance assessments. And we have some ideas that we would like the commission to consider. The first one deals with a group of candidates who, when they get their score report, must be the most frustrated because they miss by just a couple points. So one thing that could be done is for the commission to allow programs to look at multiple measures of performance for those candidates. So, you know, how they performed in class, their student teaching evaluations, what do they hear from the cooperating teacher, use all that information. And for the candidates who are within a negative 1.0 standard error of measure, so it's going to vary from performance assessment to performance, how many points that is, but we're just talking about a couple points. Let the programs decide whether or not that person is classroom ready. If the program decides that that candidate is classroom ready, then they can recommend the candidate for a preliminary credential, but they're going to work with that candidate to create a very specific individual development plan. So programs work with all candidates to develop individual development plans at the end of their preparation. And what we would ask, or what part of this idea is to ask programs, if you're going to recommend this candidate, then use the data you have, especially from the performance assessment, to identify areas where this candidate needs some strengthening. And then that individual development plan would be carried over to induction, and the induction program would then look at that, and as they're working with the candidate to develop their individual learning plan for induction, they can identify the supports based on that information so that the candidate's getting some reinforcement, some support in those areas to make sure that they're where we want them to be. A second idea is to strengthen program responsibility for candidate performance and TPAs. So our program standard 5 already says that, but one idea, or part of this idea is we can look at how can we make it clearer to programs what they must do to support their candidates. In addition to that, we could look and develop cooperatively with programs a process for commission staff, program sponsors to work with the lowest performing programs, the programs with the lowest pass rates, and help them look at the data, see where they might need to make some changes in the curriculum, or where which TPEs are their candidates are strongest on, and which ones they need some work on, and suggest best practices, perhaps connect them with other campuses who are really doing well, their candidates are really doing well on the TPA, and then come up with a plan together with the campus to improve. And then the final idea is to convene a performance assessment work group. So pull together certainly practicing educators. We'd want teachers, administrators, national board certified teachers, especially since we're getting so many more of them every year, as well as preparation program staff, assessment experts, to look at this 5 years of data that we have now and identify where we're strong, where we might need to make some changes. You heard from Juliet how Fresno State is doing that on their own, and there's some things that maybe we could learn from each of the models and spread those best practices. So those are ideas for the commission to consider on how we can, we already have great pass rates, but taking into account the comments that you saw from a number of candidates or current teachers, how can we make it a better experience? So we will be ready here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Thank all of you for your time and for the data and your attention to this detail. We're now going to open for public comments. We're going to have a time limit of 2 minutes. And I'm going to try to do a screen share because I put the clock on my computer and we'll set it for 2 minutes. So I'm going to try a screen share first. If that doesn't work, we'll do my cell phone, but our normal Blue Sky timer is not working. Lots of technical challenges today, but we will overcome. For the public, as just a reminder, if you're here and you want to speak, then you just need to notify the meeting moderator by submitting a request card, and if you're on Zoom, click the raise hand icon. And if you're by phone, hit *9. And of course, we'll make sure we go to each individual person. The recording secretary, are there any public comments? And then I'm just going to wait to just check in with Haiju. Or do you think we're ready? While we do that, I'm going to see if I can do Haiju. I'm going to go ahead and try the screen share, see if that works. I cannot share my screen while the other participant is sharing. Okay, well, we can go phone. Okay. Recording secretary, let me get my phone set up. Oh, now do you think I can try it? Yeah. Okay. Why are we on that page now? Okay. Recording secretary, are there any public comments? I had to turn on my camera. I'll just have to go like this. This is going to be pretty primitive. I could only share a screen. Okay. Recording secretary, can you say that louder or into the microphone? Because I wasn't.
Commissioner, staff, I'm Steve McDougall representing CFT here today. And I want to acknowledge the work that CTA has done on this topic. They have articulated quite clearly what CFT has long already known. And these folks that are trying to join the profession have invested by taking the teacher penalty, by making 26% less than their peers in other sectors, have to deal with the cost of living in California, have to deal with the cost of healthcare in California. I don't want to talk about Miami County where I come from, and crushing debt. If they are going to invest in the preparation accreditation program, then that program should stand behind them. What are they paying for? You shouldn't have one determination to throw them out and keep them from entering the profession at the worst possible time in history. The staffing crisis is real. Stand behind them, find a way. There is a suggestion I just heard. CFT would be okay with that. Let's stand behind them and get them in the classroom, get them keys, and get them in our rosters, and let's get to work. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Miyuki Manzanedo, and I am a classroom teacher representing the California Teachers Association. CTA really appreciates the time that has been invested by Commission staff in developing the second annual report on the Commission-approved teaching and administrator performance assessments. We also still remain concerned about the narrow scope of the data that's been presented by this annual item, as it inhibits the substantive discussions among commissioners about the true costs and benefits of the teacher performance assessments and what they truly mean for teacher candidates in California public schools. At a time of widespread educator shortages across the nation, it is critical that you as leaders scrutinize the licensure requirements to evaluate their costs and benefits relative to teacher supply, diversity, preparation, and well-being. Many states across the nation, such as New York, New Jersey, Washington, Wisconsin, and others have had these tough discussions and have decided to eliminate EdTPA requirements. Now, having recently completed a teacher preparation program myself, only a couple of years ago, I clearly remember the excitement that it was to complete it, to enter and start, becoming a teacher. But we also really remember the stresses and almost the distress it was completing our teacher performance assessments. We cannot afford for teacher candidates to burn out before earning their credential, and that the human costs of this assessment are real and cannot be dismissed. We thank the commissioners for your time and leadership on the issue, and look forward to helping evolve our state system in educator preparation to better equip teachers to bridge California's diverse students to brighter futures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Erin Gittens. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a fifth grade teacher in La Habra, representing the 300 plus members of the California Teachers Association. And I want to share, as a fifth year teacher, I'm someone who took the Cal TPA rather recently. So as highlighted by my colleague just previously, many other states have established and evaluated the role of Ed TPA within their system and have decided to eliminate it. CTA has similarly engaged our membership with evaluating the costs and benefits of both TPAs over the past 2 years in State Council on credentials and professional development and the CTA New Educator Pipeline Work Group. Both groups arrived at the same conclusion that both TPAs undermine teacher preparation and negatively impact the teacher supply and diversity. Subsequently, a survey of 1,284 CTA members strongly corroborated the committee and work group findings regarding the impacts of the Ed TPA and Cal TPA, showing that these assessments, A, damage teacher preparation by imposing lengthy tasks of low preparatory value during this highly impacted time of teacher preparation. B, they undermine the activities that teacher candidates identify as having high preparatory value, like collaborating with their mentors, teaching in real classrooms, focusing on teacher preparation coursework, and working with their university supervisor. And C, producing excessive levels of stress and anxiety, undermining the mental health and well-being of teacher candidates. I would also like to point out that this survey was completed by the CTA membership, i.e. people who are still teaching. This does not include the voices of those who have left teaching. I'd like to end my comments with a snippet from one of the members describing the impact of the TPA on them. The TPA has caused so much additional stress and anxiety that I've had to reconsider whether or not I truly want to pursue this profession. It drove away my passion for education. I eventually sought mental health care. If we are going to make this a sustainable career, we can't afford to contribute to burnout. While these comments condensed into a 200 plus page document may first appear as excessive and expected, it's nonetheless valid. Their raw honesties reaffirm this work that we do here, and we need to continue channeling their voices in the work that we do here. CTA looks forward to working with CTC and our partners to evolving the education preparation program.
I'm trying to find something a little bit nicer. That sounded terrible. Thank you so much. I know, right? Thank you. I know, right? I should go off.
Are we ready?
Who is it?
Susan Green.
Miss Green.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. Susan Green, Chico State, speaking on behalf of the California Faculty Association. The CFA represents over 29,000 members on all 23 campuses of the CSU, and we prepare over 50% of the teachers in the state of California. I've submitted some written comments this morning, and the first thing I want to do is to thank students like Aaron and Miyuki, students and teachers who submitted heartfelt comments about this item and their experience in the profession and their road to getting to the profession. And I also wanted to thank the extensive and detailed analysis provided by our union siblings, the California Teachers Association. We've been here many times in the past, and we're here again to reiterate that CTA believes that the state of California should end the mandated use of teacher performance assessments in teacher education programs. And there are a number of reasons why we have taken this position over the years. The first of which is, you can see in the comments by all of the members, we have serious concerns about the design, the validity, and the reliability of TPAs. High stakes testing is something we've opposed for pre-K students, and it's bad practice for our student teachers and future educators as well. And teaching to the test is bad pedagogy at all levels, and we think we can do better. Secondly, we believe that the TPAs are a barrier to teacher diversity. Recent studies have shown that high stakes test assessments serve as barriers to expanding the number and diversity of quality teacher candidates. The number of people, the number of those tables had n less than 10 is really disturbing. We should know if a number is 1 or 0. We need to see the data, but I think it indicates that we have a diversity problem. To that end, we've sponsored 2 different bills, AB 672 on a teacher credentialing task force, and relatedly, we've provided AB 1255 on an ethnic studies task force. We look forward to working with the commission and with the legislature to improve the teacher credentialing process in the state, and at the same time, ensuring quality and diversity for our teaching workforce. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roxanne Miller, please unmute your microphone and share your comment.
Good morning, members of the Commission. As Dean of the Atala College of Educational Studies at Chapman University, I wish to first echo the written comments submitted by Dr. Rebecca Harris of Azusa Pacific University regarding the need for access to additional disaggregated data on candidate Cal TPA performance than is currently authorized for disclosure by the Commission. For institutions of higher education to make informed decisions on the best way to support candidates, as well as to achieve our shared goals of diversifying the teaching profession, access to disaggregated data in greater detail than we currently have is imperative. My comments center on a different aspect of the need for disaggregated data, one which focuses on data by TPA cycle by subject area, and the key role that access to this disaggregated data plays in relation to the upcoming Literacy Performance Assessment LPA implementation. Nowhere in today's report for item 2C did I find disaggregated data on first-time pass rates by cycle by subject area, literacy versus math, depending on the choice of the candidate for each cycle. With the decision for the LPA to replace cycle 2, if the current commission mandate that one cycle focus on literacy and the other focus on math continues, then math will become the default subject area for cycle 1 for multiple subject candidates. I have yet to hear discussion at this point, math becoming the mandated subject area for cycle 1, yet I believe it's a point that needs to be fully discussed and that we need greater access to data to have an informed discussion. There are additional comments that I have in my written submission that I hope that the commission will pay attention to, as institutions of higher education will have to pay very careful attention to this change. Additionally, I would like to suggest, for transparency, renaming cycle 1 as cycle 1 : mathematics, or perhaps even more clearly as the mathematics performance assessment, as the decision for cycle 2 to be literacy seems to indicate that this is now the case for all candidates. Thank you very much.
We have no additional requests for public comment.
Okay, I'll just give it a moment. Thank you, everyone, first of all, for your comments, and thank you, everyone, for staying within the 2 minutes and following my primitive timer. I'm going to now just double check, close public comment. Public comment period is closed. We will now open up for comments and questions by the commission. Do commissioners have any questions or comments on this item? And just as a reminder, this is an information action. This is an information item. No actions needed at this time. All right, Commissioner Hartwig.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for this extremely detailed report, and thank you for all the thoughtful public comments. I was really appreciative of the information that was reviewed and attached in the appendices about looking at the number of attempts that it would take for candidates to pass. And I think it goes to a lot of the questions we have about what type of an entry barrier the performance assessments place. But I was wondering if you could speak to us at all about the relating the ethnic subgroup breakdowns to the number of attempts to pass. I appreciated that the appendix had that generally, and that the general takeaway was the vast majority of candidates pass by their second attempt, and it really, there's a cliff down to the third attempt. But I was curious as to whether you could tell us, does that map out similarly for the ethnic subgroup breakdowns when we look at the different subgroups, particularly that we're interested in bringing more candidates into the profession? And I know we've got multiple different TPAs that we're talking about. I was looking at the TPAs, but maybe just to talk about the Cal TPA. So if I were, for instance, to look at the, let's see, where are we? So page 2C-21. Get me back to the right table here.
Yeah, that's the correct one.
Yeah.
That's for the Ed TPA.
Yeah. So if I were to be looking at the breakdown for the Black candidates or the Native American candidates, would it similarly map in terms of, because there's a great improvement between the first attempt versus, you know, the final result. Would it similarly map? Let's see.
There's one for each assessment. So yeah, she's looking at 16A on page 21, which is at TPA.
Yeah, and then you can look at, let's see, where is the appendix J?
And then
appendix J.
Table 2 on page 14 is the Cal TPA breakdown.
Oh yeah. Was that a clear enough question?
Hi, Heather Klesch with Evaluation Systems Group at Pearson. I do understand the question that you're asking, Commissioner. What I believe that you're looking for is a breakout, looking at Appendix J, where we have by program year, the number passing on first and subsequent attempts, but broken out by ethnicity. We don't have that table for you here today. I understand the question. I think it's a valid point to look into in terms of by group, are we seeing similar patterns of number of retakes? What I can point you to is the summary of the outcomes of that, which we did present in table 2 for Cal TPA and a similar table for Ed TPA, which does break out by ethnicity, the first attempt pass rate, and then taking into account those number of retakes, whatever they may be, the best attempt pass rates for each of those groups. But I understand the question, and I think that that's a valid point for us to take into a additional breakout of the data, in addition to some other comments that I heard during public comment of other views of the data that may be more granular, but informative in terms of being able to really shape what's happening here.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of detail in here already, and it's much appreciated, but that's certainly particular information that I would find really material. Thank you.
Yep, we can definitely get that.
Great. Thank you for the observation. We're going to go to Zoom. And then we'll go, so in order, we're going to go with Commissioner Francois, Commissioner White-Smith, Commissioner, where'd she go? Was she still on? Yeah, but Pavri, she's still on? Oh, okay, oh, there you are. And then we'll come back to the room and we'll go to Commissioner De La Torre. So Commissioner Francois, good morning and thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioner Martinez, and hello, fellow commissioners. I have a couple of comments that I want to make about this item. First, I want to share Commissioner Hartwig's appreciation for the summary tables and slides that were shared. This was a particularly data-rich, some might actually say data-dense item, and so I appreciated the summaries as a focal point for the overview. I really actually was really encouraged too by the idea around learning from each other across all of these performance assessment models. I think the more we learn from one another, the better our decision making can be. You know, I've been around long enough in this performance assessment world for teacher preparation that I remember in the early days, the dimensions that candidates struggled with and the ones that they were actually very good at. And so on the report end where we talked about, where it was reported that using student knowledge and providing feedback was consistently high. Our students scored consistently high in those categories. That's not always been the case. And so focusing on the young people in front of us really is very encouraging to me. What's not so encouraging to me is consistently low in analyzing effectiveness of teaching and student use of feedback. I remember us having these conversations in the early days of PAC, which was one of the original performance assessment. And to hear years later that our candidates are still struggling with that is of concern to me. It made me think about idea 2, strengthening program responsibility for candidate performance on TPAs. And I was wondering, and I imagine it is the case, but are there provisions for programs to talk about in our program documents how we support candidates on the TPAs? I think I remember that, but I'm not sure. And if that is the case, it might be of value to do a little bit of analysis of the different strategies programs are always using, so they're already using, because then we would be able to see the gaps in what's not being provided. What I don't want to happen is that there be a perception that institutions of higher ed in particular are not supporting candidates through the TPA, whether it's EdTPA, CalTPA, whatever, because I know that there's a tremendous amount of work that happens at all of our institutions around candidate support. So, I mean, to that point, I also agree with Dean Miller and Commissioner Hartwig that this notion of doing deep dives into the data continues to be a challenge for us as a commission. And I know that we have a lot of research partners that can help us with that, but I hope that we will find a consistent strategic plan to look at the data more deeply, uncover what it is that we keep on missing that continues to have our, I keep seeing the same data over again around ethnicity and pass rates, et cetera, et cetera. I just want more information. And then my last comment is, I want to say that I do share the concerns about recruitment, retention, and diversity that were presented by CFT and CTA. And something that struck me was what the representative from CTA said about high preparatory activities and teacher preparation that have high preparatory value. I don't know that I've ever heard that phrase before, but this is also one of those areas that I think we might benefit from as a commission to really look at the research around what are those activities and dimensions. I know we do this individually as institutions of teacher preparation. I would love to do that alongside commission staff, alongside my other higher institution of higher education partners, so that we might be able to agree upon what are those high preparatory value activities that we could be engaging across programs and across segments. So I'm calling for a study session if that is if that's possible. And again, thank you for this agenda item. I can't even imagine what it took to prepare for it. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith-White.
Hello, colleagues. Actually, Commissioner Francois took the words right out of my mouth. I want to echo everything that she just mentioned. So, and to be brief, I'll just make an observation. So thank you so much. The data was rich. It was illuminating. It's, you know, and we're responding, yes, and we need more. we do, as EPPs, want to be able to use this disaggregated data to support and help us in our continuous learning process. And I too echo the what Dean Miller brought to our attention with regards to this cycles, specifically being in particular content areas and the impact that might have. I want to tie that to the look at diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the things that is concerning me is the trends that I'm seeing at every level, right? Here in San Diego, we developed the Black Ingenious Initiative in response to the county's decreasing student achievement for our African American students, despite all of the supports and the advancement that the other subgroups are seeing. And so as we are attending to this, these subgroups are going up, and I consistently see in PK-12 and higher ed, our African American students and our communities are still struggling. And so I think that that's something that we need to pay attention to. If we are paying attention to diversity, equity, inclusion, and other subgroups are going up, why are we still seeing this in this particular area? So just an observation.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Pavri.
Thank you. I totally echo what my higher ed colleagues have said. Thank you to the Commission and to everyone for pulling this incredibly rich data. And yes, as we know better, we want to know more and we want to continue to do better. So my comments really do weigh in on those principles. So I do want to, I was recently, somebody shared with me the study session that was conducted in June of last year, and I found that extremely helpful. And for those who haven't seen that, I do encourage people to take a look at that video, and there's a accompanying paper as well. I've also carefully reviewed the CTA survey comments and other questions and feedback. And of course, I think all of us have had rich interactions with faculty, with higher ed administrators, and of course our students who take the TPA and the APA. And so really wanting to give voice to some of those concerns as we move forward and the ways in which we can improve. I think the self-study provided a really rich history and also a rationale or impetus for why we developed these performance assessments. And what the merits were. And I think the strong focus on continuous program improvement is one of the key reasons why we use these performance assessments to continue to learn from our candidates and enhance our programs and prepare better teachers who can impact what happens in our schools. An observation is that some of the arguments that have been the reason for the development of these performance assessments, that they be authentic tasks, that they be teacher-based or administrator-based skill sets that show up in your day-to-day work. I'm hearing a little bit of a disconnect in some of the feedback that we're getting, including in the CTA survey, about how these performance assessments may be over time. Comments like, I cannot be my authentic teacher self. I need to bloat and script my lessons to pass. I feel like my lesson plans need to be perfect. And I wonder, have some of these procedural or methodological issues around the platforms that we use, the videotaping, the editing, the annotating, all of these procedural things that we ask our candidates to do, is it taking away from the authenticity of the task and maybe making this a more difficult process all around, and maybe a less authentic process all around? I also want to give voice to some of the questions that have been raised by my colleagues, our deans in the system, our faculty and others as well. In terms of the research base, to support, we absolutely see the value in these performance assessments in terms of program improvement. Do we have, and this is truly an innocent question, if you will, because I haven't found data, and I wonder if this is something that we want to encourage in a self-study as well. What data do we have that indicates that candidates who actually do complete these performance assessments are better teachers? As compared to candidates who may not be taking these performance assessments? It definitely helps us improve our programs. Is it helping candidates become more reflective on their teaching? We see that those are the areas that are rated lower on the APA and the TPA and the EdTPA. I want to echo what was raised earlier about the desire for more diagnostic data on student performance so that we can continue to enhance our programs and meet student needs. I think it may also be helpful for us to learn about pass rates by pathway. I know that has been identified as one of the reasons why we see racial and ethnic disparities in the data. Are there more students from our BIPOC racial groups taking maybe the internship route or other pathways where they may not be receiving the same levels of support on the TPA and AP, primarily the TPA in this case. And then I do also want to echo a concern that has been brought up by many of my colleagues in the system around, as we see, especially a number of students who need more attempts to pass, who may submit one cycle, not the other, or who may not submit at all or may not pass, even when they submit both cycles. Those students continue to need support. And in some instances, those students have finished their programs. They are program completers. They are no longer matriculated at the university system. And that is an important group of students, future teachers, maybe substitute teachers, who I think we need to devote some attention to supporting. There is definitely on a very practical level at the universities, there's a workload that is often not compensated when these students who have finished their program and are no longer technically our students have not earned their credential. So how do we continue to work with that group of students to get them over the finish line, which for many of them is really, really close? So these are just some wonderings and thoughts that I wanted to share, and I hope we can continue to the study session. I love the idea of sharing ideas with each other, and I am very intrigued by the use of the multiple measures for particularly those candidates who do really well, and would love to hear more feedback from the field on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're going to have a response to some of the bigger questions you asked, and then we're going to move on to Commissioner De La Torre and then Commissioner Cotton for questions or comments.
So Commissioner Popper, you had asked if there's any studies on predictive value of the performance assessments, and they were not designed for that. They were designed for helping us understand who's classroom ready as a teacher or as a building principal, building ready, I guess we call it. So they weren't designed for that. It would be really hard for us to do in California because each LEA has its own evaluation system. So if we wanted to look at evaluations of teachers, and then see if there's any relationship between performance on a TPA and then their evaluations, the evaluations vary so much from district to district, and we don't have access to that data. So it would be very challenging to try and run a study like that.
Thank you. Commissioner De La Torre.
Thank you. I would like to echo my support for all of the comments from our, the public comments and my commissioner colleagues, and some things that I wanted to bring up. And there's a bunch because we went through so much. So I'm going to cut it down to a little bit so we don't spend all day here. But the first thing is that I wrote in my notes is about how support is provided directly to those students who are affected, who need the support. So is the support, do you just look at the data and say, oh, you know what? It's standards 9 and 11, whatever. Let's put that into our program for all students in general. Or do you pull those students aside and pull them in and say, hey, I noticed that you did this on these, so let me help you on these standards. This is why you didn't meet that criteria, because that's a very different type of support. So if it's embedded within the program, it's not specific or individualized to the student at all, or the candidate. So I'm just curious about that, how the support is implemented. The second thing is, when I saw the comparison of which standards were more scored consistently lower, they seem to be analytical standards, and that just might have to do with the type of writing. And I know that for national board, there's the 3 types of writing that we focus on, which is descriptive, analytical, and reflective. But we specifically target and I tell my candidates, these questions need a descriptive response. These questions need an analytical response. So is it possible that these candidates who are submitting their assessments just aren't providing the right type of writing to get the scores that they need? So the teachers themselves are not necessarily not analytical, but maybe they misunderstood or don't understand that the responses have to be analytical responses and not descriptive. And so it might just be a matter of they're not submitting the appropriate response to be measured accurately. It doesn't accurately measure what the teacher actually brings to the plate. The other thing is, as my colleagues from CFT and CTA have mentioned, why do we even need a high stakes assessment at the end of a teacher preparation program if the candidates have already participated in a robust program at their institutions? And it's a high stakes assessment that's mandatory. So national board assessment is high stakes, but it's completely voluntary. So I'm in total support of a voluntary high stakes assessment, because you choose whether you want to subject yourself to that or not, which is fine. But to make a high stakes assessment mandatory at the end of a program, when these individuals have invested so much time and energy and effort and money to a profession that desperately needs more teachers, it doesn't make sense to me. And if multiple states have already eliminated such an assessment, why is there even a need for us to maintain it? And the last thing I wanted to bring up is looking at the data. Sure, the retakes are positive and promising data, but have you taken into account the mental stress and anguish that effect might have on candidates, especially candidates, BIPOC educator candidates, who from the beginning might already feel othered and may have feelings of inadequacy to begin with, to be told, oh, you know what, you're not good enough. And this data shows that these different ethnicities, that's why you're scoring lower, because your ethnicity is not as good as this other ethnicity. So that added stress on having to take a high stakes assessment, it just seems like, and it was brought up about the mental health. I think one of my CTA candidate brought that up, about the teacher candidate who brought that up as well. And those are serious effects for individuals who could be having a positive effect on students in the classroom, but because of these external measures of high stakes assessment that's mandated, that we don't even know if it makes a difference to create a better teacher, I just don't see the need for it. Those are just my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cotton and then Commissioner Brown.
I wanted to say thank you for this thoughtful staff recommendations to help mitigate some of the frustrations about the TPA process. And also thank the other commissioners for raising very relevant questions about this process. As we focus on diversifying our teacher workforce, what steps can we take to ensure objectivity for the assessment of scoring?
Commissioner Cotton, can you get closer to the microphone, please?
How's that? Okay. I didn't know it was that loud. Okay. As we focus on diversifying the teacher workforce, what steps can we take to ensure objectivity for assessment scoring, especially for assessments such as the TPA? For example, this assessment requires video, which shows candidates and may increase bias in scoring. What steps are we taking to ensure that candidates of color are receiving fair treatment and addressing implicit bias through this process? A number of commenters have mentioned that many states have eliminated TPAs. Can staff examine what states are using in lieu of? So is that something that we can look into? And then I agree with the idea of a work group to more closely look at creating or recreating a more impactful and meaningful preparation process, I wholeheartedly support that and would love to see that move forward.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so we're going
So to answer your question about bias, so we require that our scorers take implicit bias training and provide it regularly for them. Is that done yearly?
It's done yearly and for new assessors when they are brought on immediately.
And then another thing that we have in the process is some pretty rigorous inter-rater reliability testing. So Heather can explain the process better than I, but it's continually checking to see if our scores are staying calibrated and not getting distracted by what they're seeing on video or things like that. Heather, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, and just looking at scorer trends as well. So if we have an individual scorer who might be more punitive than another scorer who is reviewing the same papers or trends, then that is something that also would flag as a quality measure that we would need to intervene and work with that assessor. So what David is describing are some of the quality measures that we have behind the scenes as we work with our assessor pool. But I do agree that with both implicit bias training as well as a continuous reminder around bias prevention in their scoring, we do provide scorers the ability to also opt out if they know the candidate personally and can't remove their own personal affiliation with that score to be able to score fairly and score to the evidence. Then we want to make sure that they recuse themselves from that process as well.
Do a follow-up, Commissioner Cotton? Or? Okay, all right. Okay, we're going to go Commissioner Brown and then back to Zoom, Commissioner Francois, and then I just saw that Commissioner Heredia had her hand up, and then Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing all of this rich data. I wanted to focus my comments because I do agree with many of the comments previously made. I really would like to amplify a concept that Commissioner Pavri alluded to, Commissioner De La Torre, and that's the notion of time. In the presentation, I heard that there was some mention of not knowing the time it took between first attempt and best attempt. And my experience, I know I've shared before, my daughter is a brand new first grade teacher and, had to do the Cal TPA. And her experience that I observed from the living room was that she did not submit her cycle 2 within the scope of her preparation program. She did the lessons, she did the videos, she did what she needed to do, and at the conclusion of her preparation program did not feel like she had the mental capacity to get it in the format that it needed to be submitted with the quality that she wanted so that she could have her best attempt be her first attempt. So what happened in her situation, and I'm sharing this because I feel like this may be the case with other candidates, is that once you finish your program, I feel like the more length, the more time it takes for you to complete these requirements, you feel more distanced from the potential support that you may have when you're in a preparation program. You're with your cohort, you're with your colleagues. And so that concerns me, because going back to the ideas that Mr. DeGuerre shared about idea 1, about strengthening the use of performance data as one measure, that is, I would embrace that idea so that it would eliminate the need for multiple attempts. But we would really be using that information to inform how we support candidates. And back to Commissioner De La Torre's notion of, is that what that candidate needs? Or do we use this data for broad improvements? So to put those two together, that's where I feel concerned. Who is going to be the person to support them? because once they're out of their preparation program, and I want to honor from my colleagues that are in preparation programs, that puts a strain on faculty too that may not be factored into how we support candidates, the time and effort it takes. So while I love that notion, I feel like we haven't really explicitly called out time, calendar time. And if we are going to get nitty gritty about the data, that would be interesting to know also for those candidates that do not pass on their first attempt, how much time elapsed and how many times did they have to resubmit before they got to best attempt? Which even that term I feel a little weird about, because I'm sure those candidates, when they're submitting, that is their best attempt in that moment. You know, and to go back to the phrase I heard earlier, you know, when you know better, you do better. Same with our candidates. That's their best attempt. And if they didn't pass, so anyways, that's just my own thoughts about that term. I feel a little weird about. So I would like to know more about time and the impact on candidate. And if we were to really dig into that idea of this being one measure to inform the recommendation from these programs, then how would we be able to do that process of putting it into the IDP that's carried over into induction in a timely manner that doesn't overburden our programs and helps the candidate for the outcome we want?
Thank you very much. Commissioner Francois.
I love this conversation so much. I'm so disappointed that I couldn't be there around that table today. I'm hungry, so I'm going to keep this short. This conversation is reminding me that maybe it might be time for us to revisit local scoring again. I know that there are a lot of challenges to local scoring early on in the TPA process, and a lot of it had to do with the implicit bias training, et cetera. And I could imagine a world where we still have that training, but the score, because I think that we all believe, well, I believe that what we have candidates do on the TPAs, no matter what TPA it is, has value. I don't think that's a question at all. I do think the high stakes nature of it, I think the fact that in some cases it's disconnected to what folks are, their real life experience. I think the mental stress and anguish, I love that you said that, Commissioner De La Torre, that you called that out, of I'm giving my best effort and now it's going out into the cloud somewhere and someone who doesn't know me, somebody that doesn't know the region, whatever, is scoring this. I think that that is really hard for our students. So I can imagine a world where we could have both consistency in the scoring and have the scoring localized where the scorers actually know the person, because it does not escape me that our candidates are scoring consistently high in knowing and using student knowledge and providing feedback. We should be doing the same thing as institutions of higher ed with our TPA. This should be, we could be more responsive and providing that feedback in real time. I think then we might actually see that the passage in Ed TPA does make them better teacher, but going back to Commissioner Pavri's point earlier. So I would like us to have more conversations of, is it time for us to revisit local scoring in the best interest of our candidates without diminishing high quality expectation on the TPA?
Thank you. Just to remind folks that we have Commissioner Redia, then Commissioner Simmons, and then we have Commissioner or Chair Greno Shire, although she might be doing some of our wrap-up conversations. So is there anyone else who anticipates they might have a comment? Let me know. I appreciate the anticipation. Okay, we'll have you go after Commissioner Simmons then. All right. And then, oh, just 1 second, Commissioner Sandy, are you just in the queue or did you want to make a comment? Can hear you.
I'm just in the queue. Thank you.
All righty. Okay.
Okay, so Commissioner Hartwig, thank you. Yeah, way back when we started this conversation, and I'm not sure what time it was. Wow, I just realized what time it is now. But the question that you asked was the question that I have written down. It was a burning question for me about looking at it, looking at the different subject areas, the scores by subject area, and teasing that out. And one of the things that I thought as I read this is that there's already so much, as many of the comments, I'm not going to try to repeat what everybody said, but when you're in that situation, and I remember being faculty, at the time when this came about, and I go back to even the original, the PAC, these names, it's hard to say, because it brings back memories, the early assessments. But in order to do the best job, sometimes in the universities, it's not only the time, it's cost. And there's so much cost associated. And with faculty, faculty saying, when I would go to them and say, look, can you possibly take on this added assignment in order to work with students? Like, and, we had to do that with the CSAT. We had to do it with the CBEST. We had to do it with the RICA. I had to pay for faculty to understand that test and go through. So, and there's already so much. And so what have we learned as a result of all of those? We've learned that over time that that we can embed whatever knowledge that is into the syllabi if it is closely monitored. We learned that there are ways that we can assess those items in the courses and have to produce that assessment because those assessments are then scored collectively or with a small group of faculty. And over time, we realized that we could eliminate that anxiety like we did with the RICA and the CBEST and find kind of a more humane way to assess students in our program and have them focus on what we want them to focus on is, learning to be a teacher in a setting, but learning to know yourself, what you can do and what your students need, and focusing, and what is their capacity at that time. So much. I support the idea of, if these assessments have to remain in place, I support the idea of not penalizing the students and having them go on and having alternative practices, assessments for students to complete the program rather than having to do this, carry this over. I think beginning teachers who are induction programs are already overwhelmed. I hear, I hear from them, just the induction programs itself. Sometimes they're not even sure of the relevancy of the induction program in which they're a part of, and so, and I remember when we were just coming out of COVID as commissioners and there was the waiver on some of these assessments, the TPAs, maybe should I say the right one, the TPAs here. And I remember thinking that, oh, they're going to get a waiver. They don't have to complete it. They get to go into their their new teaching position, but it's still hanging over their head. And then they have to do the induction. And then they have to do whatever else is at that school site. Then we wonder why people aren't going into teaching. So I just want us to take the lessons learned from all the previous assessments. What have we learned about assessment? What have we learned about our ability to embed what we want to know into programs? What have we learned about programs? We know which programs, could use support. I would hate to go to a program and say, you're doing really bad, but, I would hope to go to that program and say, let's work with, what do you think? How do you think that we could help you or to get your scores up and help you with your support with your students? But I sat at this table, but this is like my third year now. And it was the RICA then. And I just hope people aren't at this table another 5 years with this same conversation. because the CBES conversation lasted way too long in the history, and the RICA lasted long, and that was even more painful. So I'm just hoping that we take what we know and we come to the best conclusion about what to do. And I am strongly in favor of reducing the number of assessments as possible. I mean, we're smart enough to find a way to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Simmons, and then followed by Commissioner Davis in anticipatory, and then Chair Grinoshire and Executive Director Sandy.
Okay, what I'm hearing is basically three big ideas. You got your pen ready, David? Okay, and I also agree with Commissioner Heredia that we need to do this pretty expeditiously because we've got this hanging over candidates' heads now. So I would hope that perhaps even in December, we could have something that was maybe an information action item that we could actually like do something about. So the 3 points that I'm hearing is that we need to follow the law. So whatever it is that we do, we want to go back to what the law says, which was that the TPA is included in the things that you do to determine the recommendation. It doesn't determine the recommendation, but it's part of those multiple measures. And I get the feeling sometimes that it becomes the cart driving the donkey, or whatever that expression is. And the second one is that we need to transfer some of the onus of this from the candidate back to the program. I remember when, I started working with the commission 3 days after Mary. So I have been here a long time, or around here a long time. And back in the day, accreditation was all about inputs, and we started moving towards outputs. And I think we kind of over moved towards outputs. So I think that we need to the reason why we do a lot of the high stakes exams is not because of determining minimal competence of the candidate, but to ensure that programs actually adhere to what it is that the commission says or the law says they need to do. So I think moving some of that responsibility back to the program. And I think also I want to see I want to identify revisions to accreditation, because I think that going back to the idea of, are we really assessing inputs? And in particular, I would say the continuous improvement is what we've heard a lot about, candidate support. And I also think we should look at reallocating resources, because I wonder whether we are spending a lot of our accreditation team's time on induction programs, which are now again becoming the tail wagging the dog, and less on the preliminary programs, which is really where the rubber meets the road. How many mixed metaphors can I put in this?
You got that one right. You got that one right.
Okay.
I don't know about the donkey, but
so under the law one, I think we need to have the TPA be one of multiple measures. I think that it needs to be embedded in clinical practice. And if the candidates are viewing it as duplicative, we're doing something wrong, because it should be their clinical practice. And I think I also would like to, instead of doing the -1 SEM, I would like to eliminate second attempts. I think at that point, the program should step in and say, this is what we need you to do so that we can, and this is how we will support you so that we can recommend you. Now, I think if that happens a lot in a program, something in accreditation maybe should be triggered so that we're not seeing the need for them to remediate people. But I also think that the program should take responsibility for people who don't pass the first time. And sorry, Lori, that would affect your income, but I think it would be helpful so that they don't have to repeat it multiple times. And then I also think that really where that we went astray was when we went away from local scoring. I think that is, and I understand for CFA, if you're still on the line, I totally get it. but I really think that it's that ownership that you have of working with your own student where you really know their strengths and weaknesses. I think we have lost. And I think that with you lose faculty buy-in, and that I think goes towards your candidates. And I remember was it a year ago when we did the sort of dog and pony show of all the ones. Fresno really, what I took away from that is that Fresno still has that kind of ownership of their candidates, which I think the other systems might have lost because faculty doesn't actually have that connection. So those are my 3 points that I would like to hopefully see in December, if that's at all possible.
Just a small request, that is all. Let's see, Commissioner Davis.
I'll try to keep it brief. I'm a neighbor of Mr. Wicks. I'm from Compton, California. I'm from South Central Los Angeles. And that's where I got my education. And as a teacher candidate, the stressors were unbelievably insurmountable at times. And I could only imagine what candidates, especially candidates of color, are experiencing through the TPA process. I've supported candidates through this process since PACT was a thing. And so I'm lucky I got my credential a few years before PACT became a thing, but I don't think I would be in the profession if I had to go through what candidates are being subjected to in the programs, and not because it's overly rigorous, but because of the types of pressures and other things that we experience as people of color that a lot of folks around this table don't have the personal experience of. I mean, you probably have heard of it in theory or have seen it in practice in our society, but I'm going to echo a lot of what Commissioner Francois said about this robust conversation. I really love it. And I enjoy having this conversation because I get to hear, and I try to always be, and I was talking to Commissioner Brown about this, be the guy who kind of summarizes things or brings up the tail end of things, because I want to hear where everyone's mind is around topics. And I want to say that I'm constantly educating my friends in the community, my actual friends, not just my colleagues, about this notion that there is implicit bias no matter where you go, and there's bias in our education system. And a lot of it is surrounding test prep. Test prep is in and of itself biased, because if I am a person who has a couple of kids, I'm struggling through my college program just because of the balancing of life and the circumstances. I probably am not going to be able to afford that test prep program, or to be in that very best program because of maybe my grades, because of the other societal pressures, the ethnic bias, gender bias, or LGBTQ plus bias, whatever the biases are, they're out there. And it will preclude me from being as successful the first time on these types of tests. So let's look at the best attempt. And I appreciate my colleague here to the right who talked about my best attempt is my best attempt when I submit it. And that is accurate. If I'm in South Central Los Angeles, where I did some of my work to become a teacher, I've shared with the commission before some of the comments that I've received from field professors about my skin color and the way I dress, and that was a factor against me when it came to how I could get my credential, how I could be successful. So I was in another added pressure that I didn't need at the time, because not only was I going to 2 schools full time, I also had a job and a half, and I was taking care of my terminally ill grandmother. And so again, other factors, a lot of other stuff. And I think we all experience a multitude of factors when we're going through stressful situations like school, because it's life. But my point in saying this is this: my teaching context, my life context is always going to be different than everyone else's because of this beautiful tan that I wear. And I'm going to say also that when I go into a classroom, when I go into a college, when I come into a space this way, and I appreciate the representation in the room, I'm usually the only one, and I'm not here, and I appreciate that. The point I'm trying to make here with the data that I see, when it comes to my best attempt, and it says percent passed on best attempt, the person who's getting the remediation or is going through that process a second time almost always looks like me, according to this data. And that is something that we haven't mentioned outright in this conversation at the table, not that because it just hasn't been stated. It's been implied, but I want to state directly, if someone's taking this second or third time going through the TPA process, they probably are a person of color. I'm looking at the statistics, and if my first attempt, if I'm African American, is 73% passing, second, third time is largely that group of people, right? And so I think the evil that this does is greater than the good that it does. Even if you say, well, a multitude of people are passing and we're passing at higher and higher rates, there is a toll that it is taking on people who look just like me. And that's a comment that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Cruz is going to speak, and then again, we'll go back to Zoom.
Yeah, I'll just keep it very brief. I just want to echo the comments and the discussion, and make sure that while we've centered the comments and the discussion on the Cal TPA, that we also consider that the same pressures and the same things happen with the Cal APA. These are educators in our buildings working full-time, and they're trying to now be the leaders of those buildings, and there is also still a shortage of highly qualified administrators. So I appreciate the conversation and the comments, but I want to make sure that I highlight the fact that, you know, we also need highly qualified building leaders.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. Chair Marquez and then Executive Director, bring us on home.
Thank you all. Let me start by thanking the staff for this comprehensive agenda item. Your framing, your construction of the agenda item has led to this really, really deep dive that all of us are taking. And I really appreciate the comments of my fellow commissioners, the public comments, and the focus on candidates and diversity, equity, inclusion, and support. David, you presented 3 ideas, and at the beginning of this agenda item, and I think this robust conversation has touched all 3 areas. And I know the staff's gonna go back and think about this. Commissioner Simmons, I don't know about having this back in December. That could be ambitious, but I also understand the urgency with which we need to approach this. So, as one of my colleagues said earlier, this is the kind of dialogue that this commission has always that leads to change that benefits our candidates. So I'm really sorry I'm not in the room with you. I look forward to the next steps, and I'm gonna pitch it over to Executive Director Sandy for her comments. Thank you all.
I really want to add my thanks as well. These are the kinds of knotty, complex discussions that make me love this work. And I have had the benefit of many years now of conversations just like this that are about making sense of the realities of teaching, the context of teaching, and the science of teaching, and putting together the best pathways that we can so that we get the workforce that we need and that we don't eliminate the diversity within that workforce. All of these they're not competing priorities, they're all compelling priorities that we continuously keep in front of us. So I also really want to appreciate the feedback that we've gotten from the field, because understanding candidate experiences is a really important part of this work for us. We do an annual survey, and you've had some presentations in recent meetings about survey results and what they kind of speak to at the high level. But that gives us a quantitative understanding of, what percent of candidates or new teachers felt like this was a valuable experience. It's an important question. But tell me more is always, I think, a question that we have. And so the 200-page letter submitted by the California Teachers Association is rich with candidate experience that I think we really need to attend to. So we welcome the opportunity to look at what needs to happen next with this assessment. We'll endeavor to do our very best to bring something back for you in December, because we do think it's when we know better, we do better. And I'd like to not wait myself, but my poor team is groaning. You may not see that in the room, but the team is saying, "Oh my God, there she goes again." But really, I think we are all on board with, identifying what horizon we're headed toward, and then laying the steps necessary to get to that horizon. So I thank every single person who's spoken to this item or written to this item. And I thank you for the opportunity to continuing to work on and improve upon this critical aspect of teacher preparation.
Great. Thank you so much. And certainly a privilege to facilitate these kind of in-depth conversations that impact our teachers in the field and our students. You guys always live for me to say this, having no additional items today. I recess the Educator Preparation Committee until tomorrow. Marisol?
And I think we'll now recess the general session. Members of the commission will go into closed session. The general session will reconvene at 8:30 tomorrow morning. And I'll leave it to Marisol to talk about lunch break. Thank you all.